Good morning. It's a great morning. It's March Madness.
Speak it into existence.
It is the most wonderful time of the year.
It is the most wonderful time of the year.
Ding dong, ding dong.
Not to be confused with the Christmas holidays. Holiday!
This is my favorite time of year. It is
Spring baseball season for high school.
Spring baseball season for high school.
Enjoy that today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, the most jam-packed sports day you can probably find is today.
Denham Dawson Day.
Denham Dawson Day. Yes, that could be it too. Jordan Bennington holiday.
I think the Wild just scored again.
Yeah.
Wow, why'd they go for 2 on you guys though?
Because they hate me.
Yeah. Did you have any points, goal scoring going on in that one? Because that one game alone,
that would have been it. That would have been the one.
I mean,
but no,
13 goals in that.
No, I had Fairleigh Dickinson.
Been some unbelievable comebacks and onslaughts in hockey, or is that just me? Like, I go back a couple. Maybe it's just fresh in my mind how the Pens came back from 4 down, 5 unanswered a couple weeks ago, and they blew one last night, but. Night before last, but it just seems like hockey. These teams just go on these runs now. We saw it with who was 4-4. It was Caps and the Sabres. Caps get out to a nice. It's not cushy, wasn't it? 3-1 at one point. And all of a sudden it's 4-4, and it's like, man, this people
goals are being scored at a rapid rate.
People just score whenever they feel like it in hockey.
Are there goalies in net?
Hey, so I watched because I have the MLB deal on my phone, and I wanted to see Severino and Nola yesterday, even though it's spring training. But we're close enough to where I just kind of want to get a sense of when they run good quality arms out there. Man, Phillies, they get up 7-1 early. Don't really care much about the results, right? A couple hours later, of course, I'm scrolling through the ESPN app, and I see 7-7 heading into the 8th, and I was just like,
"That's spring baseball for you."
Exhibition baseball.
that is spring baseball.
Just playing softball.
And you probably scrolled one past that and saw a leg injury to one of the best closers in baseball at the World Baseball Classic.
We've seen some. Between Gavin Lux, obviously, which wasn't during WBC, but he's got the ACL for the Dodgers. We've seen some. Well, in good news, though, depending on who you're a fan of, see DeGrom is touching 100.
Which is wild to me.
Yeah, just had his bullpen session and hit the gun at 101.
I don't know if I should be worried about that.
Well, remember, when spring ball first started, we were making fun of the fact they shut him down because it was 55 degrees, right? Or whatever it was.
I don't know if I should be worried about DeGrom throwing that speed because of the injury issues, or if I should be insanely proud of him for coming back and bouncing back like this. I don't know yet. I don't want to get my hopes up for the best pitcher in baseball, a former Cy Young winner. And I shouldn't say the best pitcher in baseball, one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Coming
and
off
then just have my heart broken because I like good baseball at the end of the day. I'm a Cardinal fan, but I like good baseball at the end of the day.
And I want to watch a year ago.
I want to watch them be good for the Rangers. I want the Rangers to be a better team.
I wouldn't mind the Rangers being pretty good, not just because of John Tolman, but because I think that division needs some help. It needs some more intrigue.
We
need something to happen in the AL West other than the Astros.
And as a fantasy player, I am sick and tired of drafting that guy so high because of his ceiling, right? Oh. If he's healthy, it is, you're in the sky. You're in the sky with expectation with him.
Do you enjoy setting your roster for fantasy baseball?
Every single day?
A lot more than you do gearing up for your 1 week roster set in football?
No.
He said no.
No. I would much rather play fantasy football.
Yeah?
Much rather play it because fantasy baseball is a chore. at the end of the day. You always have to be checking on, hey, what's the status of this guy going into the 6 o'clock games? And the point scoring systems are always so different. Like I play in a roto league, I play in an auction league, I play in a head-to-head standard league. And
yeah, you're doing too much.
And for baseball especially, I should not be in more than one league.
Yeah.
But here I am in 3.
Mm.
In fantasy football, DB, I'm in 5 normally. It's ridiculous because now you just start repeating your draft picks because you don't want to root against a guy. So now you're just building the same team 3 times. And then if your team sucks, well, now you're out X amount of dollars of whatever you chose to play with your fantasy league.
Yeah. So great stretch. Spring baseball right around the corner. Spring sports at the high school level getting started. March Madness getting started. We get our guy, the Silver Fox, this morning early. Fantastic get from Shane Schillerberg on a humbug.
7:43.
On a humbug from Andrew Rogers.
7:43. We are talking to not Peyton, not Eli,
not
Arch, but Mark.
On a humbug. Was that 2 nights ago?
Mm-hmm.
Or last? Yes, yeah. 2 nights ago.
Yeah, because I texted at like 10:30.
Yeah.
Which if he was geared up for Thursday, that wouldn't have worked.
I was like,
or Wednesday.
And I don't even know if I responded because I thought it was going to be late notice.
Yeah, more times than not, what I bring up is way too late.
Well, no, it's just, I'm like Thursday. I mean, they're rolling.
Oh, already there.
Yeah, you know, it's like, and sure enough, I just don't think he likes to tell us no. Like, that is like my guy.
If we would have screwed up the very first interview with Mark Manning on this show, then he would have told us no.
Yeah, so
but I think he really enjoyed his first time on.
So do you
not his first time with you? But
do you follow Shane Sparks? He covers wrestling.
No.
Oh gosh, ball of energy. I mean, he's had like 75.
I only follow one Shane, followed by an S, and then
he's had like 75 Red Bulls. So he was just tweeting out yesterday just random footage of guys, you know, getting ready, going through the motions. And I was watching Labs and Rob yesterday. And it was like ultra aggressive. I was like, let's go. And then tomorrow, did I say that correctly? Tomorrow, we get our regular we get a correspondent to talk wrestling because
we do.
Jessica Cootie she'll be at Nationals.
Fresh off of a WNIT call.
Yeah, for women's basketball. And she's not far from there. No. I mean, she's from the Oklahoma area, so it's like right
home for her
in her wheelhouse. And we'll grab a little women's softball perspective too. Is they didn't need a Wallace.
No,
it's got a whole nother harness.
Well, how many pitches did she throw?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. Is that 11-4 final, 14-4 final? I don't know.
Didn't she throw in the first game too?
Yeah.
So what, like 150 pitches? Like,
but
my arm would fall off.
No. See, that's the thing. I went through this, like, this is in my former life when I was like, oh man, I was pretty good at baseball. I can hit a softball. No, I really couldn't.
Well, I matched up against Olivia Farrell back in the summer, and I got one piece of
so
contact.
I was like,
put it in play.
First of all, the mound's entirely too close. But I used to train a ton of softball players, like a ton. This was, I mean, we're talking early 2000s. My buddy had a place, Jared Harden. He was a softball guru. He had a facility in Council Bluffs, and we were going through the mechanics and why throwing underhand is the natural.
What's your
way.
Natural movement?
So, like, arm fatigue is like,
I don't know,
darn near non-existent.
I have arm fatigue just walking sometimes. Like, oh,
but you should get your swinging gait right. Hey, what's going on? I don't know, man. It's my power walk. But
yeah, no, I know it's your natural motion because that's why they say with pitchers, like, you're throwing the ball the wrong way, essentially.
Counterintuitive to way your body's built.
Right.
But yeah, so we'll get our fair share at 7:43. It's kind of strange. and maybe I'm misremembering. So wrestling aficionados, you can correct me if I'm kind of wrong, but it feels like since Nebraska's joined the Big Ten, kind of the fickle wrestling base has always said, well, they underperform in the Big Tens and the Big Ten tournament and represent well in nationals.
Yeah.
So I wonder.
That.
It feels like that. It kind of feels, it's a tight knit niche community. But I wonder what they'll say after having 5 in the finals in conference tournaments versus what the expectation level is at nationals. So this time doesn't suck.
Nebraska finished in the top 10 in 6 of the last 7 NCAA championships.
Here we go. It feels kind of like that. I should have, as my man Mike Boker would tell me, show prep. I should have had those numbers in my head, but it kind of feels like that because I think people have mixed, for whatever the reason, man. He has tough critics.
Mark,
yeah. In terms of wrestling, but the style has changed a little this year. He told us how he's going kind of on the pulse of his team, athletic and aggressive, and they have some tone setters. So
those tone setters are veterans
and so he's kind of evolved in the last couple of years. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I was just watching the videos of the warm-ups.
From Sparks,
and
hey, he's wild.
It had me thinking because being at state wrestling. Gosh, what was that? Only like 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Text you every 5 minutes about Matt. Hey, man, are you sure it's Matt 6?
You know what's so funny about that?
Wait, is it Matt 7?
I'm standing next to Mike Sauter, who is over the moon right now because Aaron Rodgers, again, alluded to the fact that he wants to play in New York, and I'm convinced he will never play there. That is my guess.
Oh, gosh.
He was standing next to me at state wrestling, and you probably felt like, oh, I'm kind of like bugging him a little bit, for Matt and like this. And I'm just like, I'm here, so I'll send you the details. Mike Sauter plucked, you probably thought, oh, he's annoyed. That was Mike Sauter, feeling annoyed for me that you were texting me all these things. He got annoyed, and I was just texting you back nonchalantly. And he wasn't even involved in the conversation.
Pot meet kettle about having to babysit a guy. That dude's been riding on my coattails for 10 years, and he's worried about me texting you.
Oh, because you called me, and I was standing there. I'm like, oh, DB's calling. So she hasn't shown up yet because you were on delay.
Yeah. So I was at least a minute off.
Right. And then we were trying to time it.
So I was
figure that out, which I don't, why are we dumb
I was like, wait
that?
A minute, man. How am I? Is Piper on 7 or 5? Because I know Barber's going on 5, but it's NFHS was messing with me. Yeah,
and we're just dumb guys actually trying.
Meanwhile,
to
it's like 3:30 on a Thursday, and I'm glued trying to watch girls state wrestling. Right? That's what I do.
And so then you called me again because I can't remember what you wanted to know, or you were just commenting on
I
wanted
to. I think I asked you specifically about somebody's warm up. I was like, "Hey, how's she on such and such?"
Right.
And like, "Oh, it's over on 8. I'm over by 5." And I was just like, "Oh, fudge! I feel like a nerd." But it's what I would be doing if I was there, so I was just looking for another set of eyes. And you volunteered. You're like, "Hey, man, I'm leaving about 2:45, man. I'll be down there." I was like, "Say no more." It
didn't bother me in one bit, but who it did bother was our good friend Mike Sauter.
Yeah.
I don't know if it actually bothered him.
Did you see his typical passive aggressive Sauter text? He had because he and Tony, it was pretty amazing. If you got into NAB preps and what Tony and Mike did with the superlatives for state basketball, they were in the weeds. I mean, they're in there covering. I felt like I was having NAB preps with Jacob Padilla, right?
You read those articles,
they're
going to learn something.
Legit, right? It's legit. And so before he tweeted his out in his little defeatist attitude.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody will find something wrong with these, but here we go. I was like,
Now he sounds like Shane.
I would agree, Damon.
I'm like, OMG, man. Like, do you know how much we get criticized? Like, it's okay.
Right.
Shane, it's like R.I.P. It's like Nightbird. It's okay.
He called me yesterday after because he did a little shoot. Was he down in Lincoln?
Did he tell you to STFU? Was that you he was talking to in our group text?
Yeah.
Man,
Well,
we were
because
putting
I
on
said he'll never end up there, and because he was like,
and I mean, he immediately clapped back.
He wanted to like shut down like the vibe
Of
more
the Rogers?
more than the hey, I'm telling you to like I'm anger like I'm feeling a sense of anger.
Did he
coming
do
over
the
me.
Aaron Rodgers edit photoshops, or did he grab that off?
No, grabbed it off Twitter.
Okay.
But he called me yesterday after he left Lincoln. He was doing that baseball shoot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And how he said he was going to hit off the pitching machine. And so he called me and he goes, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I hit the ball at least twice." And I'm like, I'm in the midst of playing video games at this point. Just kind of killing time until the first four games started. And I was streaming the first Omaha softball game against Nebraska. And so he tells me I hit 2 doubles. I'm like, oh, really? Like, where'd they go? Well, I hit them into the net. And I go, then how'd you know they were doubles?
Isn't that everybody's favorite, though? I mean, we've all been there. If you play baseball, that's right. You're like in the cage, and listen, you're like hitting in a hallway. Right. Oh, yeah, it's a double to left center.
Well, because he goes, goes, yeah.
Hey, that'd have been a one hopper in the gap. Like
he goes to the coach. The coach goes, "Oh, that's a double for sure." So he was just taking what the coach was saying, and I started laughing. And he goes, and then like when you end on a good one, like you always have to end on a good one. You're in the gym, you make a bucket, like that's your last shot of the day. He goes, I had a hit, and it went right back at the net where the guys were putting the balls in the pitching machine, and they all kind of freaked out a little bit because of the screamer that came back at them. And I bat flipped and walked away. I'm
what
like,
do you think
anything
they had
more
the
solder?
What do you think they had the machine on, like 60?
Oh, he said it was slow. I said, "What are they throwing? Like 10-year-old pitching machine speed? Like are we at 11? Are we creeping into the teenager age?"
We say all that to say, man, it is a good weekend.
Oh yeah,
because technically this is the weekend, right? Is that kind of how we feel? Is everybody going to work today?
No, I know people that took today and tomorrow off.
Yeah, I would imagine. Shoot, a lot of work production has to be pretty bad.
I think statistically it's down on these 2 days.
Yeah.
You get 50% of your work done.
Shut down their Wi-Fi. What if businesses just did that because they know people will be online? It'd be like, yeah, let's shut this thing down today
because everything's online.
We're having tech issues.
Yeah. And then I'd go here because I have data. And I would just load it up on my phone.
I saw one of the greatest administrators ever pulling out of a gas station yesterday. And they're on spring break. And my back was to him because I couldn't figure out what side of I pulled up on the wrong side of Caleb's pump because I had to take his car in to get the
been there, done that
estimate. And I should just looked at the arrow, right? Like which way it was pointing.
Does that ever confuse you, though? Because I sometimes see the arrow and I'm like, so does the pump need to be on the left or is my car gas tank on the left?
What I just go by, I think early, right? Because I used to do these endorsements and stuff and I would be in all these different vehicles. One doesn't exist anymore, but it was a fantastic idea. I just think it was too high end for the area, but it would be a different gas tank side every time I pulled in, and I'm not very smart. I remember one of the times I got a car that I couldn't figure out how to start, so I sat in the parking lot for like 4 minutes, and I finally had to call the guys back that dropped it off. I was like, I'm not sure how to start this thing. It has a fob, but I don't know where they're like, yeah, you got to step on the deal and then hit the button, and then I'm like, yeah, I'd have been here for a while, but anyway.
That's Hey, thanks for looking out.
And then I think Shane turned me on to the arrow thing, right? Did you tell me like just to start looking to see which way the arrow was by the gas thing? I was like, oh, I never knew that.
So if the arrow,
so for 35 years, I didn't know that. Basically.
If the arrow is, say the gas pump logo's in the middle and the arrow is pointing right to it, does that mean it's on your left, or does that mean you? So
typically, the point of the triangle should be the way that the gas tank is. However, whatever way the triangle is pointing. So if the apex is to the left, it's on your left. If the apex is to the right, it's on your right.
Even though the arrow's pointing at the gas tank the other way?
Yeah. Whatever way, go by the apex.
Point.
Yeah.
Go by the point.
Because they should put it on the correct side of the tank, right? If the tank is the tank should, for all intents and purposes, let's say, be in the middle. And then if it's to the right of the tank, it's on the right because that's the way the apex would point. Is that too much?
No, that's just a blonde moment for me.
Well, we just talked about 6 sports in about 14 minutes. So then why not do gas?
Well, that's the show, right?
Wait, who is on the show? I just tweeted it out.
Well, Mark Manning at 7:43.
We love that.
We are talking to Mitch Sherman at the top of the hour at 8:00. Brian Edwards talking some March Madness plays today and possibly tomorrow. And then we will get back onto the Creighton train and talk to Matt DeMarinis at 9:00.
Yeah, a lot of mixed reviews. It seems like the national folks are a lot higher on Creighton than the folks that are closer.
And is that only because of early season expectations?
Well, I think it's a lot like.
You gotta think so.
Listen, it's a lot like Nebraska football, right? We'll see these win totals and stuff, and people close to the program will be like, "What?" National, like, "Oh man, this is the year.
This is the year." Because when they're right,
the local yokels will be like,
right.
"What?"
The best game of the day is today, Colgate, Texas. That's taking place later on this afternoon.
You have a Colgate fan right along with you. He was in the break room yesterday at Hurrdat. Is it Aaron? Austin's great, by the way.
Austin, I call him Plorde.
And it's Plure, right? Is that yeah?
So I just like to put.
He had like his little headsets on, and everybody was. Does everybody eat at the same time at that place?
Mm-hmm. Everybody takes the same lunch break.
That is wild.
It's like you're in a classroom and you just get dismissed and you go sit down.
Entirely too many people. So I'm just sitting there wanting to get some ice, right? Because I thought I was supposed to have my one-on-one. And Sasha was like, "Hey, are you here for your one-on-one?" And I was like, "Well, kinda." I said if I stumbled into it, it would be good. I was really here because this luncheon thing was
lunch and learn
was on the calendar. And she goes, "Oh, that's not for you." And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go upstairs and I'm gonna leave." It didn't happen that fast, but so Austin, he's like, "Hey man, I gotta get your take. I'm in on Colgate." I thought he was messing with me because you would do something you would like put somebody up to that.
Yeah,
like,
I would text 3 people.
Yeah, and I was like, "Are you serious?" And he goes, "No. Not only will they beat Texas, they're gonna get 2 in a row." And I was like, "Yeah, you and Drew down. Go get
Welcome to the team."
Wouldn't that be anarchy?
Complete anarchy.
Early.
Hey, we've got a pretty funny headline, too, that I'll tell you about next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Well, we've told you today's the start of March Madness. Did you know that? Probably not until you listen to our show. It's Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club, which is where you should be at 11 o'clock to join DB and I as we watch March Madness go down from 11 to 3 here at the restaurant. It is going to be a fun-filled event with the entire Hurrdat Sports team. Plus, I think there's like 30-plus TVs out in the main restaurant area, the bar area.
Which, by the way, Shane, hook it up. None of the TVs are on?
TV remote.
Hey.
I'll get on it.
Your boy got a new hat. Did you see it?
I saw that, and I didn't know what it was, and I was going to ask him.
Oh, Mavs.
That's kind of sick.
It is kind of sweet.
It's actually an old hat. I've only worn it like once.
I've never
probably never
looks
seen
like
it.
something you'd see on a T-shirt in like Spencer's.
Oh, Mavs.
Like the design,
Yeah.
the way the letters are, the cursive writing.
Do you know I had no
Sweet
idea.
hat.
I had no idea where AB was
Let me see
yesterday
that hat.
when I was at headquarters, and I forgot that she was
In
on
Denver.
She was on the doubleheader broadcast.
Look at
Right?
Shane's
Didn't she
hat.
do softball? I think she had softball yesterday.
Oh, she did, and now she's going to
Yeah,
Denver.
she had Creighton. She
is literally on the Creighton train.
So we will not be together today.
Not today. Or will we? No, there's no way. She would have to be leaving today.
I don't know. And then tomorrow we've got another circus here.
What's tomorrow?
Tomorrow's breakfast.
Oh, breakfast. St. Patty's Day.
Yeah. And we're having corned beef.
Eggs Benedict, which
Eggs
I cannot
Benedict.
eat.
Did you see the sample plates that the ladies had?
I
the other
did.
day?
They look
Those were
incredible.
sick.
They look
And
incredible.
I was like, oh, and we get bacon?
Oh, because when you're talking bacon, now you're talking DB's language.
Shut, and corned beef. I was like, shut the front door.
Ask DB anytime if you were buying breakfast for my co-host Damon Benning.
Yeah.
All you would need to bring is a side of bacon. That's it. That's all you would have to bring.
I'd
DB.
let you get away with sausage patties.
Or sausage patties. But the bacon, if you ask DB for, if he wants bacon, right?
Bacon.
He doesn't want
Bacon.
3 pieces of bacon.
Bacon.
He wants an entire container so he can utilize that bacon later on.
That is absolutely right. I was looking for the note that I left our friend last week
I don't know. There could be
because I didn't want to get on the show. Can you read that out loud?
Can I grab a bunch of sausage and bacon with potatoes to go, please? There it is.
And she gave me the thumbs up. And sure enough, and I told her, she's
And
like,
it's huge.
she's like,
They
do you
give
want any
so
more
much.
potatoes? And I go,
Yeah,
I'm
like they
not
give you
eating
a
those.
whole pig.
They're secondary, not necessary. That's just to soak up whatever the meat was.
Right.
So anyway, come join us tomorrow, man, as we get it
Join
in.
us today
and
join us
today.
tomorrow. And if Anna Bellinghausen is indeed flying to Denver today, I would think she's flying over driving. If she is flying, hopefully
If
they
she's,
don't
if
lose
she's
her
driving,
luggage.
she had to bust her hump because that softball game didn't get over until after 5 yesterday.
right.
Although
Well, they don't
ma-
play till tomorrow.
And maybe some people don't care about driving at night. Some people prefer to
She
drive.
could drive
at-
8 hours today, but
I know one thing.
it's a long drive.
I'm uncomfortable driving in the mountains.
It's not easy.
I'm a little afraid. Full disclosure. But guess what? I have a lot of support this morning because you know what? My guy Jordan, who was one of the best trainers on the planet, he said, no joke. And he's a Cardinals fan too. So you guys would probably get along. He goes, no joke. My dad learned that the arrow tells you where the pump is like 3 years ago. He's 67.
Yeah. I'm stupid. Like, I'm literally stupid when it comes to common sense things. So
man.
you guys will learn that about me out there, that if there's something that you think everybody should know, I probably don't know it until I heard it 3 times.
My hand is raised.
Everybody.
My hand is raised. It's like yesterday when I was getting into these texting debates about Denim Dawson yesterday.
Oh, yeah, it's Denim Dawson Day. I forgot.
It is Denim Dawson Day. But you know what, though?
Triple D's.
I was Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Mhm.
It's a fantastic show, by the way.
Is that Guy
Although,
Fieri?
I don't trust his because everything can't be good. Oh man, I mean, hit the sweet,
The presentation is
sour,
beautiful.
and then it's like set off with the pickle crunch. I'm like, sometimes you just want to say, man, this sucks. like you want to take a bite and you want to take a bite and just like, man, that was not what I had in mind, man. Like,
I was hoping that there would be a little less spice.
but everything he says is good. But the cool thing about that show is, like, I get a lot of ideas.
Oh, I just get hungry.
Dude, I saw a TikTok hack for bacon yesterday.
Leave it back to bacon.
Yeah. So she had like this thick accent, so it took me a second to figure it out. Maybe it was just British and I'm not very smart, but
They do speak English over there at DB.
so I'm a little stressed this morning. So she had all these these strips of bacon, and she sprinkled it with, I believe it to be flour, and she baked it in the oven. Like, it keeps the strip straight. Like, you don't get the bacon collar. For those of you at home,
I've heard
you
of a
see how
hack like
my
that.
collar is pretty stout. Is that a little much for this morning in the camera? Right. See, I'm gonna lose my mind for my stress level. So my way to combat it is to not pay it any mind. Okay, if I get another student to call me this morning.
Yeah, you're on it today.
Dude,
You are
it's a lot
you
going
are
on.
dad, you are teacher, you are husband, you are on it today.
It's a lot going on. But anyway, see, I'm trying to tunnel.
In your little white Mercedes.
that I couldn't figure out how to start. SLK. Hey, one time, this is super random. One time I had Shane walk me through what the little like AWI and SL and SEL, like when they put the little letters on the back of your vehicle, what it all stands for.
Like SE,
Yeah, SE.
GT.
Yeah, he's my little gearhead buddy. Helped me out.
I don't even. If you could ask me that, and I bet I could not tell you.
I don't know. I just knew one of them was the one that I remember was the standard luxury edition, or I can't remember what the S was. The LE was luxury edition.
Okay,
but anyway, the bacon hack. You need to try that.
I've heard of a hack like that. So yeah,
and I also saw one
curls up.
Where curls up. Yeah. Speaking of which, another guy that I follow on TikTok. Have you ever had the edges on your rug curl up?
Yes.
Okay.
So I had to put books down.
So my guy was like, and he has like this thick accent, this strawberry beard, and he's like, it took me 40 years to figure this out.
Was he Australian? And
no,
it was hard
he was American, just country.
Oh, okay.
My man he took a bunch of ice cubes, he put them on the corner of the carpet, put a glass down to hold it down on the end. The ice melted and the curl on the carpet went away.
He put essentially water down?
Maybe it was the ice, but it was ice cubes.
Wow.
I'm going to send it to you.
Why would that work?
I don't know, bro. I can barely figure out
why
I can barely figure out why Denham Dawson is leaving Nebraska, right?
Yeah, I still can't figure that out.
Anyway, these guys were going back and forth about level of surprise, and I was like, so you guys are really going to sit here and act like that's not the least bit like interesting? I'm not saying he was, going to be like Magic Johnson, but he started 7-8 games. You're
not going to see that playing time at another Power 5 school.
Wasn't playing a ton of heavy minutes. He got to like 13, 14. He got to double digits a couple times in terms of starts, but like that was going to be my development guy. And now it's like
Jamarcus Lawrence.
Well, his tweet yesterday kind of, I think, ease some tension, like, hey, I'm coming back. But now it's like you got 4 open spots. You don't have to rebuild, but man, you got some work to do in the offseason.
You got to redo.
You need a frontline scorer and you need a ball handler.
Can Lawrence be a ball handler?
I hope Lawrence is still going to be a good shooter. Like, was that too small of a sample size? Maybe. But you need some sort of presence.
And he wasn't getting the attention that Casey or Griesel or Walker was getting defensively.
You need some sort of presence in the front court.
No question there. I'll say this too. This team, even after the season ended, I'm like, man, you're losing potentially 3 of your top guys, depending on what Tominaga decides to do. How do you do another year in Nebraska after this? Because first off, you changed the whole dynamic of how you ran your offense, right? You went from one guy to like a total team effort, and then you flipped over the entire roster because everybody got hurt. Now what do? Does that work? Do you try to kind of mesh the two together?
I don't know.
How is Fred going to?
Some guys tell me it's a transfer market.
Maybe it is.
Wait till I tell you the connection I have with the 3 rumors.
We'll get into that in a bit, but coming up next, Mark Manning.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back to the show. It's Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. We're going to change gears now and talk to head wrestling coach at Nebraska, Mark Manning. The Nebraska wrestling team travels to Tulsa for the 2023 NCAA Championships in quest for a national title. The 3-day event will consist of 6 sessions beginning today, this morning, at the BOK Center. But now let's welcome in the guy that's leading the charge for the Huskers over in Oklahoma, Coach Manning. How you doing?
Hey, doing well, guys. Thanks for having us on.
Well, I tell you what, I'm just appreciative of I was scared to ask late. It was Andrew's idea, and he's like, hey, man, we got to try to grab Coach Manning. And it was Tuesday, and I'm thinking, ooh, he may tell us to go fly a kite if we try to get him on Thursday morning. So I appreciate your time. It's a much bigger deal to us than it probably is to you.
Well, it's always nice to promote our program and the young men that are in our program. So great for these guys. They're grateful for the opportunity they have today to start wrestling in this NCAA tournament, and we're excited to get it going today. And it's great to be, informing Husker Nation what's going on in our program.
Oh man, easy softball. Got to pass along. Got a couple of buddies. They wrestle in Central City. They got a nice wrestling program. So appreciative and enjoy the fact that they can come to these duels now. You've got the great kind of setup where wrestling clubs can get in and enjoy what you're doing and watch these duels. Cost friendly. That's a heck of an idea as you talk about growing and branding your program. I know several people around the state that are taking advantage of it with their wrestling programs.
Yeah, it's really good. It's our athletic department allows us to do that, and it's just great for young kids to get out. We talk all the time about inspiring other people, and that's what it is. It's the state looks up to whatever sport the Huskers are competing in, and just giving them an up close look of what these guys are all about, and they come and meet them. They can be the next Peyton Robb, or they can meet the next Liam Cronin and Ridge Lovett, and our guys do a great job of representing our university and our program, and I just want to inspire other young kids to, when they grow up, be a Husker.
Speaking of Rob, and I'll add Labriola into the mix, both finished the regular season undefeated, making just the first time two wrestlers have done that since 1961. How important have they been, not only scoring-wise for the team, but leadership-wise as well?
I mean, just amazing to have two young men undefeated go through the whole Big Ten season and all the tough tournaments we go to. It's pretty impressive. Those guys are just steady Eddie, and now it's, everyone's 0-0 starting today. I always talk about, March Madness and wrestling. It's like this thing that starts today here at 11 o'clock is like having 10 brackets. There's 10 weight classes in wrestling, and it's like having 10 brackets.
Yeah.
We just got to take care of our business today. Everyone will wrestle this morning, and then they'll wrestle tonight. So we know we have 7 guys. We got 14 matches, and we have to prepare for that. And you don't know who's going to get upset. There'll be upsets, and we tell our guys, hey, you don't look ahead. Don't look and think, well, I'll have this guy or I'll have that guy, and the bracket will never go how you imagine it. So we just got to control what we can control.
Man, I'm almost afraid to ask the next question, and because if you don't look forward, then I know you maybe certainly don't look back. You don't strike me as the type of guy that checks his rearview mirror. But man, you go back to the Cliff King, the invite, and how you started this season. You had to have some semblance of, you know what? We got a chance to be pretty good when this is all said and done. I mean, you guys were way good in Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. That's when our team really came together. We were healthy. We were banged up to start the season a little bit in November, and our lineup changed, but our guys just really gelled together, and that's where you saw them. They were competing for not just themselves, they were competing for other guys on the team, and that's when you got a special magic going on in your program. You got the spirit guiding these guys, and they love each other. And it's people might say that, but I see it each and every day, and it's really cool. We got really cool thing going on right now.
I was joking with DB at the beginning of the show, Mark, and we were talking about how wrestlers and how locked in they are, whether it's on the mats just warming up before the actual match, or even, leading up days before the match. They're always locked in. They have that one set vision, and they know the goal. The Huskers have had 11 NCAA champions, 25 NCAA finalists, 127 All-Americans, and 24 top 10 team finishes. What are the vibes like today with your group?
It's really good. They're we talk, this year, especially with the group we have, is about hunting down your opponent, hunting down what you want. And so just having that mentality, and you got to go earn it. You got to go, you got to go get it done. It's no one's going to hand you something. And that's what's great about this sport. I think that's why it's so popular. The NCAA tournament's sold out every year. It's third in viewership in the Big Ten Network.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of action. There's a lot of great athletes in wrestling right now. It's amazing. And I think, we have some of those guys that put butts in the seats, and fans love to watch. And so, we're going to go try to hunt down some national titles this weekend.
That's fantastic, Coach. You have no idea the impact you're having either. And I love the fact that you're not afraid to just really promote the sport. One of the guys I follow, Tim Ziola, who's got a son, Kate, obviously state title winner at Scud. He just tweeted out, this is the first time that he's going to be without his son because it's his birthday, but he is sharing him because he wants to go to nationals, and he's in Tulsa, right? Those are the kinds of things that happen. But I got to ask, because two of the guys, well, I love them all, but you have some first-time qualifiers, and they have some similarities in their style. I asked you about your team's style. a couple weeks ago when we talked to you, it's aggressive, it's up tempo, it's evolved over your coaching tenure with how you're kind of coaching to your athletes with Allred and Pinto and Hardy. Yes. First time qualifiers, right? And I think Bubba Wilson, he's the 25 seed too. But when you're looking at these guys and it's a first time deal at nationals, how does their approach or their temperament either discount or kind of add to the fact that it's their first time event?
Yeah, great question, Damon. I think, that's where leadership comes in. That's where Mikey Leverola, he's been here, Liam Cronin's been here, and so Peyton Robb's been here. He's been down that road, and, you don't want fear to beat you at this time of the year. You want to compete with freedom. And, these guys talk about it and we talk openly about it. And so it just gets those guys over the hump. This is a big stage and you want to shine bright when the lights shine in the brightest. Right. And so we just keep these guys, thinking about competing with freedom, doing what they do best and unleash them today.
Coach, I was watching The Water Boy, believe it or not, the movie The Water Boy.
I love it.
Last weekend, okay? And where I'm going with this question is this. Bobby Boucher loves himself some Captain Insano because he shows no mercy. Who in your group, who in your small grouping that you're taking to Tulsa is somebody that you can recognize as your Captain Insano, somebody that just shows no mercy on the mat?
Oh, there's a couple.
Well, I would say probably becoming a fan favorite is our freshman at 184, Lenny Pinto.
Pinto is a monster.
He's explosive, dude. He's our meatball there, man. He's our Italian stallion, and he loves Rocky. He's very loose. He's he's an amazing young man. He's got a great spirit about him, and that's how he competes. He's got a little Bobby Boucher in him.
It's interesting that you say that, Coach, because a lot of your guys, they step on the gas, constantly coming forward, explosive moves. When I think of a guy that you got shirting and Ridge Lovett, who's kind of the tone setter. But when you get to this stage in the season, is it even remotely possible to say or to change or to alter? Because in this sport, and we saw it with Rob, unfortunately, I didn't agree with the scoring, but maybe it was because I'm a homer. But if that takedown is scored different early, it probably goes different for Rob. Do you go back and go second to second like that? Or do you just let guys be guys, even at this stage?
Yeah, good question. You know what? It was definitely a takedown. I've had a number of people even tell me, but you know what? It takes a lot of pressure off Peyton. We could have had another Big Ten champ, and Brock Hardy was probably a second away from getting that takedown, but that's a little bit of the nature of the sport and athletics. But we just go back and say, hey, you've got a great opportunity here in 2 weeks. And it starts, today. And that process is, you don't look back. We always have the mirror, the front mirror, not the mirror in the back. And so we try to just learn from it and move on and say, hey, you got a great opportunity this weekend to be a national champion. And now you're not undefeated and you're not protecting anything, because it's easy, for the undefeated guy, to be hunted down. We want to be the hunters and we want to go earn it. And so I think that'll take some pressure off Peyton, and he feels a lot better about that right now. But good question.
Coach, best wishes to you.
Coach, yes. Good luck this week.
Yeah, we're ready. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Go Huskers, and appreciate everyone watching.
You got it.
That's Coach Mark Manning, head wrestling coach at the University of Nebraska. Fantastic individual. I feel like we could call him 5 minutes before we wanted him, and he would come on.
He's the real deal.
He is the real deal. Mitch Sherman up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Top of the hour here on Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. We are happy to have you with us and happy that you will soon join us at Hail Varsity Club at 11 o'clock when we kick off March Madness. But before we do any of that, we'll finish up the show. And we got to get to our next guest, who is a good friend of the show. It's Mitch Sherman. And Mitch, Nebraska football writer for The Athletic. But before we even get to football, I want to ask you kind of like the big news. Before I even ask that, I want to ask you first about who you think is going to win March Madness.
I picked Alabama. I just filled out my bracket last night. Good to talk to you guys. Good to see you.
Yeah, sorry. Welcome. Yeah, my head's all over the place.
I don't think that's going to happen. I got my bracket. I'm looking at my bracket here, trying to maybe make some amendments before the first tip. It's always great, like when your bracket's perfect for like 2 hours on this. That's what makes today one of the greatest days of the year, because you have a perfect bracket for like 90 minutes on Thursday afternoon, morning. I have Alabama beating Texas, which sounds very unappealing, I think, to college sports fans to see that in a national championship football game or basketball game. Sorry, slip of the tongue. But so right now, that's what I got. I might go in and have to change that. I don't know. There's not anybody that like just jumps out at me. I don't think it's a year with like great teams, obviously, and or I don't know that I would have made that pick, but Alabama's pretty good from the limited times I've seen them. That's where I'm at now.
Yeah, and they're the fave, but it's
Probably safe, right?
Yeah, they're the fave, but not.
They're the only one seed I have in the Final Four.
Now that one is going to be interesting. Let's while we're just changing gears, let me throw you the proverbial curveball, no pun intended. When you look at this Nebraska baseball team, Mitch, I asked last week and it came back to bite me in the rear end because I asked two questions specifically and both those guys came up. I asked about middle relief and was the bullpen deep enough to start to stack wins in midseason and midweek games? And I asked specifically about Caleb Clark when I was talking to Michael Bruntz. So I'm Jinxie Smurf all over the place. But when you look at this team and the schedule coming up, which is very favorable, do you think Nebraska can kind of round into form with their staff to allow them to put together the kind of record they look like they should have on paper midweek?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think Nicholls State is pretty decent. So coming off of
that's today.
Yeah, that's this weekend. 3 games in Manhattan, Kansas. I'm curious how that came about, by the way. I should be able to answer this question. I know, but I mean, like, you don't obviously they can't play in Lincoln. I mean, look outside, but you don't normally just jump into the stadium of a Division I program that's 150 miles away. So the Cats, I'm sure, are out of town. And I'm looking at the schedule coming up after Nicholls to go to Creighton and then Illinois, North Dakota State played Texas last night. I saw that, but Corpus Christi. I think and I haven't watched them play in person. I've watched on TV. I'll get down to Haymarket when it gets above 60 degrees. I think I think the team that was in Minneapolis and like the team that we saw for the majority of the homestand in South Alabama, that's going to be the team that like comes to the surface for Will Bolt. I have a lot of faith in him and confidence in him, and it was maybe shaken somewhat last year, but I think that's going to turn out to be an anomaly, that there were just a number of factors that came together and forces that caused them to struggle the way that they did, mainly pitching issues. Well, they had hitting issues too, but which wasn't a great team. Didn't make the Big Ten tournament. So, but I think this team will get it together, and when it does warm up and they can start to just feel good and get toward the end of the school year, they're going to be playing some really good baseball. I know they can hit, and watching them swing the bats was impressive in Minneapolis on TV, and then again in the first part of that homestand in Lincoln. So you got to be able to pitch. You got to have depth. You got to be able to bring arms out of the bullpen. And I think Shea Shanneman can be that guy, like more than just a ninth inning guy. He looks like a closer that you can extend a little bit. But yeah, I mean, they're gonna have to find some people for that middle relief. That's where they really struggle. That's where they struggled against UNO. Obviously, the other night was like bridging the gap from the starter, and they tried that with Clark, who had been a Sunday guy, to the back end of the bullpen, and it didn't work. And that was kind of reminiscent.
And unfortunately, Shanahan got credited with the loss. Like, he inherited a mess. Yeah. I'm sure it
took them back to their feeling that they had in San Diego at the start of the year, which was not a good feeling to have. But it happened, and it's one game, and the good thing about baseball is you got a lot of them to play.
Right. And we're talking to Mitch Sherman, Nebraska football writer for The Athletic. Let's talk about football now. You talk about feeling good about Will Bolt as the head coach of that baseball team. How good do you feel about the guys stepping on the football field next week in spring? Who are you most excited to see?
Well, we'll see what we see. Hopefully we get to see something. I mean, always excited to see the new guys. So if I get into practice and we get to watch some of the work that they do next week or whenever it is in spring, I'm sure my eyes will go right away to Jeff Sims and, guys like Chief Borders and Corey Collier and MJ Sherman. And I want to see Ben Scott in the middle of that offensive line. Some of the guys who were banged up last year or have been banged up in their careers. I want to see what the running backs look like. I think the running backs group can be really strong. I mean, not like there's an All-American or maybe Anthony Grant could be an All Big Ten guy. He looked like that for a few weeks last season, but it's not just him. I mean, the depth that they have at that position is really intriguing to me. And I'm interested in how E.J. Barthel and Marcus Satterfield and Rule, the guys who put together that offensive scheme, like the way that they get imaginative with the running backs in particular, because I think there's just so much, there's an overflow of good players in that group. And, there's questions elsewhere on the offense with the playmakers, like who's going to step up at wide receiver. I mean, you could just like pick 3 names out of a hat among like 15 guys, 12 to 15 guys, and say, okay, these are the 3 at wide receiver who are going to be the top come August. And I'd say, oh, okay, yeah, because, nobody has really separated themselves. I mean, Marcus Washington had a nice season last year, but I don't know how he fits in the scheme, especially if his guy Casey is not the top quarterback. So how do the running backs kind of bridge that gap and help them do some different things? And then also, like, there's some intriguing candidates to switch positions. I mean, there will be. I don't necessarily know who those guys are, but I think as the spring goes on, that's going to emerge and become clear to the coaches, and then hopefully that clear to us also as the public, like who on the offensive line might look good as a defensive lineman, or, who could all of a sudden become a fullback that's playing a different spot right now. I'm interested to, see how they do that, because, Rule has a history of seeing things that maybe aren't obvious to other people when it comes to position changes.
Mitch, I've always thought the world of you for a long time, both professionally and personally. You vaulted another peg on the DB love factor. The trip to Texas, we'll get to that in a second. But about 50 miles away in Oklahoma, you're on my guy. The one, Andrew, who was it that I said, this was when they first offered him? We looked at his film, Mitch, and I said, how in the world does this guy have no offers? He's been my I don't fawn over film a ton, but man, you got to give me the backstory for Mr. Fields, because when I watch him, and I could be wrong, right? Film can, people say, oh, film doesn't lie. It can, but his film and his tenacity look spectacular. What's in Ardmore?
There's a Chick-fil-A. I didn't know that. I didn't see it, but I did make sure that it was there on the Google map when Coach Newby down there, Josh Newby, the head coach at Ardmore, who's been there for a long time. I mean, he was there. They're not
cranking him out, right? When I Googled him,
they had Jermaine Gresham. I mean,
they had Gresham, know the name. And that was it. When I looked at Fields at that city.
Yeah, there's not a lot in Ardmore. There's a big giant casino that comes out of the red dirt about 20 miles south of there, right on the Texas-Oklahoma border. The thing is, it's like it's not very far from Dallas, and it's not very far from Oklahoma City. So you would think that people would get noticed there. Like if there was a good player on film, which clearly Eric Fields is, you would think that, okay, there's a lot of coaches out there recruiting in Oklahoma City, and every school in the country wants to get into Dallas and Fort Worth and recruit. On the north side of Dallas, you got Denton and Plano and Argyle and Allen, Texas, all these places that are just hotbeds of talent. I mean, you get in the car and you go an hour north and you're in Ardmore, Oklahoma. So it's not like making a trip to Alliance, Nebraska, or somewhere out in the middle of the Sandhills here. It's not akin to that. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I don't study film too much on recruits. Like, some people in my business, I generally think that those are highlight reels, and, you're not getting a true read on what a guy does. And unless you want to watch a whole game, I love going to watch guys play in games in person and get the chance to do that around the metro. That I think tells me a lot more about somebody than watching their highlight reel on YouTube or Huddle. But with Fields, it was impossible to not pay attention to it, because whether it's 10 plays in a season or he's like that every snap, I mean, the speed and the athleticism against a pretty good level of football in 5A, the second largest class in Oklahoma, it jumps off the screen. And to be And then I met it. So when I had the idea to go down to Texas, I was like, all right, I'm going up to Ardmore to see, I don't care how long of a drive it was, to see Eric Fields, because he was among the most intriguing guys, or maybe the most intriguing guy in this recruiting class. So, I could go on and talk about I could go on and talk about him all day, but like right away, I walk in and I sit down and I talk to the coach, and I said, tell me about Eric. And, I purposely didn't want to know a ton about him going in, because I wanted and there wasn't really a lot written about him. There hasn't been much publicity about the guy. And, his Coach Newby says, well, his dad was a champion boxer. And I'm like, no, I didn't know that. And he says, well, he was a Golden Gloves champ. Eric Fields, also the same name. And, he went on and he fought for some belts at the cruiserweight level. I'm like, that's really interesting. So, and I got the chance to talk to Eric about an hour later. We talked about that, and, how he learned to box at like age 6 and was in the ring, doing drills with his dad. And he has one younger brother and one older brother, and they all were brought up like that. So when he put on the football pads and got out there and started hitting people and, running full speed, to him, it was nothing, because like he was used to getting hit in the boxing ring as a kid. And he said, this stuff with pads on, it doesn't hurt. And I think he's just a natural hitter because of that. Coach Newby just kept saying violence. That's how he plays. So, I mean, you got to like that. And I know the Nebraska coaches are just ecstatic about him. I traded some texts with Coach Foley when I was down in Ardmore, and because he had given me some advice on who to see in the state of Texas. So I was keeping up with him when I was there, and the excitement comes through very clearly in how they feel about Eric Fields and what he can be as a linebacker down the road in Lincoln.
Man, I feel like I'm on the Eric Fields train now too. DB mentioned the reestablishing the pipeline in Texas, and you wrote a good piece about that on The Athletic for all of our listeners out there that would like to check out Mitch's piece. And we talked yesterday about the importance of Missouri and Kansas as well. But, we also acknowledged at the same time that Texas is really ramping up at this point. But based on your findings, I want to ask you this. Do you think that was a huge contingency for Trev, knowing that if you bring in Rule, reestablishing the Texas pipeline comes with it?
I don't think he set out to find a coach who was going to reestablish Texas or Nebraska. But I think once he targeted Matt Rule and he became the number one guy, that was definitely a plus in the Rule column, was that he had a place, and it's not just Texas. You can put Pennsylvania in that category too, where he had a place where he could just walk in, having been out of the sport for 3 years, and immediately reestablish connections with high school coaches and administrators and people in coaches associations and state associations. So there was some concern. I remember like when you go back to mid-November, and I was looking at some of my texts with people during that time, just to get a sense of like how I was feeling and how other people were feeling about Matt Rule, like 10 days to 2 weeks before he got hired. And one of the questions that came up real often is, okay, this guy's been out of college for 3 years. So is there going to be, a transition period where it's a little bit slow at first for him to be able to get back into the recruiting game? Does he have those connections? And, of course, there were also the concerns about like, hey, NIL wasn't a thing when he left. The transfer portal was just, it wasn't anything like what it is now when he left to go to Carolina. And, the first part of that question about him being able to jump back in recruiting, they answered it immediately. And it starts with Evan Cooper. And Evan Cooper's the guy, of course, who studies film nonstop and texts Rule at 3 a.m. We should offer this guy or offer this guy. We're going to offer this guy. And the two stories that stand out with Coop and people that like he was telling Rule to offer before Rule even took the job, or like the moment he took the job, were of course Jalen Lloyd from West Side. And, we've heard about that and how he got offered the day that Rule took the job. And then Eric Fields. And when Cooper called to Ardmore, to go back to Eric Fields a little bit before we talk about Texas, when Cooper called down to Ardmore, he hadn't been announced as part of the staff. Rule had only just been unveiled, and the guys in Ardmore Fields and his coach were kind of taken aback. They were like, are you really who you say you are? Are you actually a coach at Nebraska calling us like out of the blue to say, we love your film. We can't believe that you haven't been offered by more schools, and we want you at Nebraska. So because of that, and because of that eye that Evan Cooper has, and he's not the only one on the staff, but he's the ace evaluator. There wasn't that kind of difficulty in getting back in right away and recruiting. And with the ties that they have in Texas, because of everything that Matt Rule did when he was at Baylor, it was a quick reintroductory process, and they hit the ground running. By the time that like January rolled around, I mean, there were no questions about Nebraska's ability to go into Texas. And this is just a month after Rule got hired. No questions about his ability to go into Texas right away in that first class and sign a bunch of guys. And they got 6 in the first class. I think that number will only go up in 24.
Mitch, I'm not sure what your schedule is, but we've only got about 5.5 minutes left. We may ask you to hold through the segment because there's a couple things I want to get to while we've got you, and I don't want to wait another 2 weeks. If your schedule permits about another 10-minute extension. So let me ask this. It's interesting. I'm listening to what people say, and obviously I have to do a ton of homework myself as having a vested interest, not only as an alum, but a school that are pretty good recruiters. And it's no coincidence that I'm a Coop fan when you mentioned Jalen Lloyd and Eric Fields. One's a West Side guy, the other's a guy I love, and he also coaches in the secondary. And I say all that to say, what is it about Coach Rule, Mitch? And you referenced this in your article. How is he such a guy's guy in Texas with so little time spent there, really, relative to his life on this earth, versus being a guy's guy on the East Coast, which is a completely different stratosphere in terms of personality and lifestyle? He's not a chameleon, but how has he endeared himself to the East Coast and in the state of Texas being the same guy?
Well, some of it's just his personality. And if you've been in a room within him and you've had a conversation, you see it pretty quickly that, one, he's a very quick evaluator of people's character and getting a sense of like how to connect with people. He puts you at ease quickly with his style of conversation. So that plays anywhere. That plays in Pennsylvania. It plays in Texas. He could go overseas and it would work if he was recruiting somebody there or on vacation.
As long as he can speak the language.
Yeah. But and I wrote another piece that published today where I had enough leftover stuff from the Texas article that came out yesterday where I felt like I needed to just kind of empty the notebook. And I got a little bit more into like how he got in with the Texas people. I mean, that was somewhat clear, I think, in the initial article yesterday about Nebraska's plan to build on the success that he had at Baylor in developing relationships. But the big thing, and everybody that I asked about it, they said, well, he is a Texas high school football coach. I mean, that's a weird thing to say since he's never coached there, but like I heard that. And, Susan Elza, who thank you guys for previewing my interview with her. I listened to your interview with Dr. Elza. And then when I talked to her, it made it much easier to, go down some of the roads I went down. And she said that they were amazed, the people in Texas, that Rule was putting trust in the people that they trusted. So him going out at Texas right away, and he got this idea in part from a conversation that he had with Mack Brown. So when he got the job, left Temple, he talked to Mack Brown. And Mack Brown said, get in with the Texas high school coaches. And Rule didn't just call those guys up and say, hey, come visit Waco. You can come to spring practice whenever you want. He hired 3 of them. And, I'm not breaking news here, but he hired David Wetzel from San Antonio, and he hired Sean Bell from Austin, and he hired Joey McGuire from Cedar Hill in South DFW. And, now Joey McGuire is the head coach at Texas Tech. all three of them got retained by Dave Aranda when Rule left for the NFL. So that tells you what kind of fits they were at Baylor. Two of those guys played at Baylor. They were all Texas high school football coaches. And, he did his homework in picking those guys. And people that I talked to in Texas said that like, especially Wetzel and McGuire and Rule are like 3 peas in a pod, just like their personalities and the way that they connect with people. So as soon as he did that, and as soon as he started inviting those guys to come to Waco and rolling out the red carpet for them, it was over. I mean, like you match that with his personality, like he won them over immediately. And then he started going out to clinics and camps and THSCA meetings. And it was like the guy had lived there for 40 years.
Mitch, based on everything that you just said there, the thing that I kind of gravitated to was how he was able to like really win over the trust of the area, because not only did he do that in Texas, but he's been able to do that here. Yeah. How do you get in and stay in if you're Coach Rule? And, maybe that's the question that I let you think about it as we get close to the back end of the break here, but maybe just giving a few thoughts on how you get in and stay in, because that is something that I'm like, I think about. And I think, okay, yeah, people like a guy you can trust, and the fans gravitate to you because you've been able to do it. But how much of winning goes into that too? Because if you didn't win at Baylor, would people be really thinking that you could stay in our circle?
When's the shine come off? Mitch, we got about 30 seconds. Chew on that through the break. Yeah, we'll come back, and I got a couple of more for you too about work ethic, Texas. Why Texas is so far ahead in terms of their commitment at the high school level too. Some of that stuff was interesting. Now, these guys are going to high school like it's a job. I want to get to that, all that and more. Mitch is going to hold through the break. He's fantastic. Coming back.
We appreciate it.
The excellence of execution known as Mitch Sherman on Coffee and Cream.
You're too nice.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Super appreciative to have Mitch Sherman stick around for one extra segment. I promise, Mitch, it's our shortest segment of the hour, so we aren't going to keep you much longer. I know you probably have such a busy day. We just
watching
really
basketball all day. That's all I'm doing.
Fair enough. But we appreciate your time this morning. And let's go back to what I was going to ask you going into the break, but I knew that the answer probably could have been a much deeper thought, and I didn't want you to rush it. I asked because based on your previous answer, how much does getting in and staying in whether you're in Nebraska, whether you're at Texas, come with the fact that he just won games at Baylor? Because if he didn't win at Baylor, would he be as socially accepted as he is in Nebraska?
Well, you got to talk. You have to walk the walk. So what he did at Baylor when he first got there was a lot of talking the talk and meeting people and shaking hands and showing everyone that he was serious about the state of Texas and involving the high school coaches and players in the football community as part of his program at Baylor, which is something you probably have to do if you're at Texas, the University of Texas. It's not necessarily something you have to do at Baylor, but it sure does help. It sure is good. It's advisable that you do that at Baylor. I don't think you want to be a school at Baylor that, focuses your attention outside of the state, but it's a smaller private school. So I could see a scenario where that would happen. Rule did not take that path. And then, Andrew, he went from 1 win in year 1 to 11 wins in year 3. So that's walking the walk right there. But, it goes beyond that. It's not just about entertaining high school coaches on your campus during your honeymoon period. You have to stay true to those practices. And for him to be able to continue to welcome people into his program and be transparent and allow coaches to see the inner workings of it when he's in year 3 and they're getting ready to play for a Big 12 championship game. I'm sure that meant more than it did to those coaches, even in year 1 when they were getting to know him.
Mitch, so it's total coincidence. I got a good buddy who's a Texas fan, and this is on the heels of what I want to talk to you about when I talked about commitment to Texas high school athletics. And he says football athletics in Texas, it's different. If you have 4 classes a day, you actually have only 3 because 1 is athletics. So you're training during the day. It's an all year kind of thing. It runs into practice. In the piece, there was a lot in there, right, where you don't have to teach work ethic and of Texas athletes, right? Like they know what it means to put in work when they go to college. Number 2, time they spend with their high school coaches and how hard those coaches have to work, which kind of falls in line with Coach Rule. The more you're doing this and the more you're around it, is Texas the one state that you think, man, makes the most sense to get back to because of how it syncs up? Are there some other? Is it Kansas City? Is it Missouri? Is it both? Like, as you're kind of doing this and you're getting a feel of the mindset and what it takes, is Texas the state that Nebraska needs to reestablish itself in quicker? And just how much farther behind is, like, let's say, the state of Nebraska?
Well, Texas is, I think, at the top of the list of the states that Nebraska needs to reemphasize and has already reemphasized, in part because of the players that come out of the state and the sheer number of people there. There's 30 million people in Texas. There's 8 million in Dallas-Fort Worth. So clearly there are going to be a lot of prospects. But, Texas it's not like it's the end-all be-all. I mean, look, the competition in the state of Texas for players is only going to get more fierce in the immediate years ahead, with Houston coming into the Big 12, with Texas and Oklahoma bringing more SEC exposure to the state of Texas. So, you got to go all over the place, I think, with Texas as one of the primary sources of where your attention is. I mean, and some of it also has to do with just the expertise on this staff. I mean, he went and got Garrett McGuire and Bob Wager, and he hired other people on his staff too that I wrote about this week, like Josh Martin, who's the special teams analyst, and he's the son of Joe Martin, who the executive director of the THSCA. He hired CJ Cavazos as director of football relations to run
he's
things.
He's something else.
Yeah, and I haven't really just talked to him very briefly. I haven't met him. Look forward maybe at Pro Day. I think he's going to have some significant involvement with Pro Day.
Bring your energy
very soon. Yeah. So he's a Texas Tech grad and has been involved in recruiting in Texas and other states for a long time. He hired the daughter of a Texas high school football coach in Sidney Hume, or S.J. Hume. Jeff Hume, her dad, I've known him for a long time from having worked on some things in the state of Texas when I was at ESPN years ago. And, Jeff is a great resource in Texas, and his daughter, she was working for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss in coach support and administration, football operations, and Rule snagged her to come up to Lincoln. So his commitment to Texas, it runs really, really deep. And that's because there's players, on top of players on top of players. They've made in excess of 50 offers to guys in the state of Texas for the 24 class alone. Like going down to Temple, Texas, last thing I'll say about Texas, going down to Temple last week and sitting down with the head coach there, Scott Stewart, who's another guy who's been entrenched in the state. I asked him about Garrett McGuire coming in, 24 years old. He was 23 when he stopped in there shortly after getting hired. And I said, does it seem like there's a learning curve for Garrett? Like, he's done the stuff where he's been on the field for a few years because he was basically a coach when he was at Baylor as a player. But in recruiting, this is all new to him. Does it seem like, he's going to take a little time to adjust? And he said, absolutely not. First thing he did when he came in the door was he sat down and he asked about guys in the 25 and the 26 class. And so coach tells him about a 26 kid who's a freshman, who's 6'5", 215 pounds, super twitchy as a defensive lineman, probably going to be a 4-star kid or maybe higher in a couple years. McGuire gets eyes on him. And you can't really have conversations in depth at this point when he's out there recruiting, but he looks at him, he sees him run, he's playing varsity basketball in a big class of Texas as a freshman. Boom, he's got an offer. First school to offer him is Nebraska in his freshman year. Garrett McGuire, the new kid on the block, doesn't hesitate, calls back to Lincoln, says, we need to offer this kid. Go ahead, do it. So that kid, when he's in the top 100 in the country, if that comes about, which I would think it would, looking at his measurables, Nebraska is going to always have been his first offer, and that's the Rule influence, the connections and the deep ties that he has to the state of Texas. That's where that pays off. So, as far as the athletic period that they have, yeah, it's not entirely unique to Texas. There are other states that have that too, but most states don't, where you've got your football team with you for an entire class period during the day. And, it's hugely beneficial. What Susan Elza said to me was, when you get these Texas players into your program in college, you don't have to train them on how to train. And, that sounds catchy, but it really means something, because you're not having to teach them how to become college football players.
As I like to say, they don't need a babysitter. Mitch, let me get you out of here on this. Do you think, as you're listening to what the commitment is at the high school level, and obviously they play spring ball and a 7, 8, 9 month commitment, I know coaches, Coach Martin at North lobbied for an athletic block, a coaching period where when guys come in, the first people they're with are the coaches. And, that used to be a novel idea. Now other schools try it. Is Nebraska in a position where you think parents and educators are in a position to say, hey, you know what? I know it's academics as well, but we could get on board with some athletic periods in order to help train regardless of sport?
Well, I mean, you would know the answer to that 100 times better than me, but I think Nebraskans would support it. It needs to get organized at the high school level to be able to take something to the NSAA or the school districts and, probably get them all on the same page, get state coaching association behind it and just stress the importance of what that can do. I know in states that I've gone to where it comes up all the time. I don't ask questions about the athletic period, but inevitably the coaches end up talking about it and how important it is for them in their states to be able to have that time. It's like another practice. And in Texas, they've added a strength and conditioning window outside of the school day, in addition to the athletic period, in addition to the actual practice time. So there's times in the year where these coaches, whether it's a strength coach, which, yes, they have strength coaches at some of the 6A and 5A Texas schools, either a strength coach or a head coach or an assistant coach, they've got these kids 3 different times during the day. And, it's obvious when you do that what the outcome is going to be. You're going to have more committed and refined and developed football players. So, you see a guy, to go back more than a decade, like Rex Burkhead. Remember when he came to Nebraska and the summer that he was here?
Everybody was like, he's ready-made. He's ready to go.
Before camp, it was like, well, this guy seems like he's like a 4th-year junior out there on the summer conditioning practice field. And that was not by coincidence. That's because of the football culture that he was raised in Plano, Texas.
Mitch, monstrous material. We appreciate your time. Always enjoy talking to you, and we'll talk again in about 2 weeks.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you. That's Mitch Sherman, Nebraska football writer for The Athletic. Coming up, Brian Edwards. We will talk sports betting for March Madness. That's next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Now, Vegas insider, senior handicapper, and fan of the cold Budweiser bottles, Brian Edwards.
It's got to be touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
Brian Edwards.
I don't really love it.
Brian Edwards.
Were they using the cream cheese to butter the bagel?
Brian Edwards.
I'm going with the cowgirl.
Here is Brian Edwards.
Hey, if you missed our previous conversation, make sure to go back and listen to the podcast with Mitch Sherman. Fantastic stuff out of him from the Athletic. But as you all know out there, we have hard breaks, and at sometimes when
if you're not on YouTube TV,
if you're not on YouTube, you know, when conversation is free flowing and when conversation flows, you know it's a good time to be listening to Coffee and Cream. Well, we'll get cut off sometimes because in sports, you can't just cut off your thoughts. Like you have to get somewhere.
Yeah, and what he said was that we all agreed as a fan base that when Rex Burkhead came to Nebraska, we thought he was the most ready-made.
He was a junior when he was a
freshman.
freshman.
It was because of the time they spent getting ready in the state of Texas. You don't have to teach work ethic.
So, I mean, if you want any and all Husker information from that previous, whether it's, hey, I'm interested in that Texas pipeline, I'm interested just in numerous recruits or guys coming into spring, go back and listen to Mitch Sherman. Let's change gears, though, and talk to our guy, Brian Edwards, as the round of 64 begins at what time? Is it 11:15?
I think 11:07. I don't know what the exact time is.
Brian Edwards
I'm within a couple
knows.
of minutes.
BE, what's up, man? Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. What's happening? I think it's 11:10 Central, or maybe 11:15 with Maryland, West Virginia.
All right, here we go.
It is Maryland, West Virginia. But Brian, question for you, because some would argue that the most wonderful time of the year is Christmas, according to the song calendar. But I would venture to say that this is the most wonderful time of the year. Would you agree?
I would absolutely agree. Starting last Wednesday and going for like a month.
Yes.
Spoken like a true capper.
Absolutely.
Where we starting today, B? What do you like?
Well, let's start with that opener, West Virginia, Maryland. Maryland's been, I know that's not a true road game, obviously, but whenever they've left College Park, they've been horrible. They've lost 11 of their last 14 games when they've left home. Now, they were a money-making machine, ATS-wise and straight up at home all year, but not so much when they leave. And West Virginia seems to be playing its best basketball in the last 3 weeks. They're 4-2 straight up, 5-1 against the spread, both outright losses to top seed Kansas. One of them, they had the lead late in Lawrence at the Fog, ended up losing by 2, but easily covered. I like West Virginia.
Hey, Brian, a couple start times after is Mizzou, Utah State, which is a big one because I think when the brackets were put together, people thought right away that, man, Mizzou got snubbed. They have to play Utah State because Utah State is an incredible team this year. One being, let's just talk about their coach for a second. They have that tournament experience and a guy that knows how to upset a team that is ranked better than him. If anybody doesn't know who the coach of Utah State is, go back and watch UMBC take down Virginia a couple of years ago as that only 16 seed. But you actually are going to take the favorable number in Mizzou at +1.5. And it's kind of crazy that Utah State is the favorite in this game. But why do you like Mizzou here?
So both teams are playing really well right now. Mizzou's won 10 of its last 14, beating the Vols twice, once in Knoxville, once in Nashville, beating Iowa State, Mississippi State. Now, Utah State's also in good form, but with Nevada's loss last night, Mountain West Conference teams have now lost 9 games in a row in the NCAA tournament and 11 of 12. And
Wow.
I think Mizzou's the better team, more athletic. Love Kobe Brown, and I'll take Mizzou.
Yeah, this one's kind of interesting because I know a lot of people like Drake as a possible upset, and there's a lot of questions about Miami's health. A key number, man, right at a key number at 2. You'll take the rare money line because B. Edwards isn't a guy that spends a lot on juice. It's roughly minus 130. What's the difference, in your opinion, between the money line and the tight line, ATS?
So if your money line price is more expensive than minus 130, then I would probably just go the -2 route. I don't like to go north of minus 130, but if you can get minus 130, I think you do that just in case you win by 1 or 2. Look, Drake's very good. I've got a friend, Tom Ostrom, who's on the Drake staff. Roman Penn is really good. Tucker DeVries is outstanding. They can win this game. There's no doubt, especially with it seems like O'Meara is going to be out. Miami's double machine, and without him, Duke absolutely feasted on the offensive boards last week, but Drake doesn't hit the offensive boards like Duke does. And I still think, we're getting a cheap price on Miami here. If O'Meara can't play if Miami advances, playing the round of 32, he's got to play next week. Sweet 16 is their ceiling without him, but I've got a 50-1 ticket on Miami, so I'm hoping he'll be back if they survive this weekend, if they survive this game. But Miami's won 9 of 11. They lost to FSU at the buzzer when Nigel Pack was out, but he's back healthy now. They had led by 25 in that game. And then they lost a close game to Duke, close the whole way, and they lost O'Meara in the first few minutes. So I just think we got a cheap price from Miami. I think without O'Meara, there's still too much for Drake. Close game, though.
Brings up a good point, though, because if you're getting, minus 120 at 1.5 or minus 110 at -2, but you see a money line at like minus 130. Sometimes I talk folks into, they probably won't give you the cheaper price just to win by 2 without making the money line. It's going to cost you. Does that steer you more towards a money line? Like you're basically paying minus 130 to win by 1 or minus 110 to push winning by 2. Is that a $20 swing for you?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know which one's more prudent. You put it a good way there, Damon. That's a good question. I was kind of surprised minus 130 was available, and I just grabbed it. I didn't put a lot of thought into it.
It's because it's almost like they're like, okay, we're not going to give it to you cheap to push, but man, if you want to pay for just the win,
right?
That's the way the number looks, like a Miami 1-point win.
It's only brilliant if Miami wins by 1 or 2.
Well, with
or 1.
Well, with 79% of the public on Duke, or not Duke, but Drake, maybe you're right.
We'll see.
Hey, VCU is another team that I think a lot of people are gravitating to as one of those 5-12 upsets. You're always looking for at least 1, maybe 2. This bracket kind of presents 2, but VCU was given the best probability to be that upset team this year. I think it was like either 43% or 49%. You can get them right now at +4, or if you can't at +4, either you already got them at +4, Brian Edwards. But I'll tell you what, man, don't be surprised if you see VCU win this outright.
Yeah, no, I agree. I put a little touch of it on the money line. They've won 9 in a row. They haven't tasted defeat since February 7th. 7 of those 9 straight wins have been by 12 or more, including all 3 games at the A10 tournament last week. They're on a 7-1 ATS run. The Rams in their last 23 games are 20-3 straight up, 16-6-1 ATS. I've thought St. Mary's is overrated all year. Now, I do love their freshman point guard. The committee did not do them any favors, sending them east to Albany. and a pretty early start before noon, their body clocks. I just don't understand the metrics on St. Mary's. They got quad 1 wins over San Diego State and Gonzaga, which are very solid wins, but their next best wins are at home versus Oral Roberts, in Anaheim over Vandy, and at home versus North Texas. I don't understand how this team's been like top 10, 15 in the net and KenPom all year. And I think VCU hopefully wins outright, but I think they cover.
B, does this one boil down to conference strength or who's playing well? Metrics, Iowa can't stop a soul, and Auburn is streaky, but they have that one guy as their head coach. Just one. What do you like with Auburn and Iowa?
Well, Auburn didn't deserve it because they were a 9 seed, but they're getting to play in Birmingham. So now there'll be some Alabama fans there rooting against or for Iowa and against Auburn, but it's going to be a pro Auburn crowd. And remember, Iowa has been terrible on the road this year, and they've lost 4 of 6. They lost at home to Nebraska ball. Neutral court lost to Ohio State, lost by 12 at Wisconsin, by 20 at Northwestern. They also lost by 16 at Nebraska earlier in the year, by 16 at Ohio State. Auburn has lost a lot of games, 12 of them, but 10 of the 12 losses to KenPom top 36 teams, 9 of the losses to top 28 teams. In overtime at Bama, they lost, led that game most of the way, lost by 3 at West Virginia. I just think Auburn is more athletic. And here's a stat for you. Auburn, they lost their first ever NCAA tournament game in '84. Since then, they've won 10 first-round games in a row, and Fran has never gotten out of the first weekend in 12 NCAA tournament appearances.
Boy, Iowa fans know.
Right?
They're quick to remind me.
Hey, Brian, the last game on the list before we let you go, Arkansas, Illinois. You don't feel like Arkansas is in any danger, as in danger. Why do you like Arkansas?
Well, I think both of these teams have been pretty disappointing to me this year. But Arkansas has had a brutal schedule here down the stretch, and lost some close ones. That blew a 13-point lead to A&M last weekend in Nashville. Hopefully that gives them fresh legs this week. Musselman has taken them to back-to-back Elite Eights. Illinois has lost 3 of its last 4, going 1-5 ATS. Give me the Hogs.
Biggest upset of the day, Colgate. Wait for it.
Hey, V, I'll text you later on. I want to talk Edwards and Usman too, man. Huge weekend for UFC.
Sure, man. And that co-main's going to be fire. Y'all have a great weekend.
Thanks,
you too, man. That's Brian Edwards at Vegas B Edwards on Twitter. Coming up, Matt DeMarinis. We continue talking college basketball next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved at any point, it's Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Thank you to the official coffee of Coffee and Cream from the Beanery. They roast their own coffee. It's locally owned and operated. I've gone there at least 50 times since I've gotten that gift card, DB, and they've had to reload my gift card now 3 times.
Really?
Yeah.
So are you going to Chris to do that?
Yes.
Because I gotta do that too.
Yes. I go far too often now.
Yeah, well, when Zoe's just smashing the breakfast smoothies, it's like it adds up in a hurry.
And
flipping daddy daycare.
You know it's good if we keep going back. Go check out the Beanery, 4 locations: Gretna, Papillion, Ashland, and the new one that is off of 168th and Giles. If you are just now joining us in Lincoln on KFOR, welcome to the program. We are talking to Matt DeMarinis here in a couple of moments. Also on 590 ESPN Omaha, live on Twitter, live on YouTube. We are happy to have you here. Matt DeMarinis now with us on the show. Matt, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Good morning in Lincoln, too. I don't usually go on the Lincoln Airwaves, but...
You look super comfortable in that recliner.
Maddie's a
stud. Oh, dude, this is the office setup. Yeah, I got to get a good chair for the office. Come on, man. I got the Jordan on the wall. I got the TV in front, the laptop. And I wasn't going to set up an office to some old raggedy chair.
This has got to be information overload, because you love the women's team as much. Oh, maybe not as equally as much, but you love the women's team too. You've got to follow the men's team. You've got 100 games going on with NIT, the NCAAs, and you love numbers, right? Like, what is going on in the world of Matt DeMarinis right now?
I love it all, man. I love the numbers, the film, the lingo. So yeah, I didn't sleep much last night. So you know me, I like to know all the whys when I watch a game. Like I want to know why it's happening, so I have to study first. So I know why Creighton and I know why Creighton's going to beat NC State and Mississippi State, and I know why Mississippi State and NC State are going to beat Creighton. So like nothing's going to surprise me tomorrow. So I'll just get a good night's sleep tonight, and we'll see what happens.
Let's stay right there. Everybody talks about the trio of NC State and their guards and how they can shoot it. Right away when I saw the matchup, I'm like, I'm your ACC honk. It's not the guards. what's going to happen with Burns Jr. He's a different kind of player. I start to look at where Creighton may or may not be vulnerable, how far Kalk wants to play outside of his comfort zone, the adjustments Kalk made, playing Dixon the second time or in Madison against Nova, which was pretty fantastic, how they made a few tweaks to the drop coverage. What concerns you the most when you look at NC State? Could I convince you that Burns is the key?
You could. I like Burns. He's a guy that definitely stands out. I don't know if he's a guy that's going to bother Creighton in the way that Villanova bothered Creighton, because he hasn't shot a three all year. Now, I think the way he shoots the ball, he could shoot threes. He just doesn't. So if he came out and hit a couple, it wouldn't shock me, because I think the ball comes off his hands really smooth. He reminds me of, playing pickup, and you always get that one or two guys like they look like unassuming. You're like, oh, this dude, it's whatever. And then when the ball's in their hands, they're just super comfortable, and you can't break their rhythm. You can't shake them. Like they know what they're going to do.
He owns Baycott, so maybe I'm stressed, but when he faces the basket, I'm telling you, man, he's a good enough passer.
Yeah, he's really good with the ball in his hands. He's left-handed for one thing, so that's a tough thing to deal with, because you're not used to, guarding guys that go over the right shoulder. And he's got a little fadeaway to his game when he can get into that 10-foot range. He's got a little leaner to his game that, he can give himself some space from Kalkbrenner and get it over the top of that wingspan, and he has soft touch to score buckets down there. So yeah, he's I don't know if he's going to be an X factor, but like he's top 3 or 4 on the scouting report for sure. I think Jack Clark is another guy that stands out to me, because he missed a bunch of time and he just got back into the starting lineup. They got waxed by Clemson, but he's a guy that's like, he's kind of their Kaluma. He's going to crash the glass. He's long. He's athletic. He's not a great 3-point shooter, but he's a capable 3-point shooter, and he's certainly, like all those guards, he gets them up too. So he's a problem. I think that's what I mean. There's a lot of variance in this matchup, because NC State is capable of winning this game and doing what they do and making it look like they're the better team on the floor. But that's why we play the games.
Well, we're talking about the worry of Creighton to NC State. What about NC State to Creighton? More times than not, you're probably worried about Kalkbrenner, right? That's probably the guy that you're most worried about. But knowing that this is a team where all 5 can go off at any given moment, if you're NC State preparing for Creighton, how do you kind of do that?
Yeah, that's tough, because Kalkbrenner's, he's one of the most efficient players in the country for a reason. He doesn't waste his opportunities when he gets them. The NC State's really interesting to me, because they kind of are. This is like a yin versus yang matchup. Creighton is, they have principles. They're disciplined. They know what they want to do. And NC State is like completely the opposite. You know what I mean? As soon as they get the ball across half court, it's like, get out of my way. I'm going to get a bucket here. Like whoever has the ball in their hands, they don't care about range. If they can see the rim, it's going up. If their feet are set, and defensively, they just like, I watched back. I think the most recent game I watched of theirs was, I've watched a bunch, but the Duke one where they really put it on Duke from the jump.
They blitzed them.
But Duke won the opening tip, and my man was like checking up at midcourt. He was like, we're gonna wear Duke jerseys today. We're gonna you're not getting space to do anything. I don't think Duke got it inside the free throw line extended, like for the first 4 possessions. Like they were getting hounded. So that's going to be something for Creighton to deal with too, because they're coming off of a game where they kicked the ball around the floor against Xavier, who's a team that doesn't really turn you over. They don't really heat you up like that. So, when you're going on recency bias is a thing, Creighton's got to get a lot better at ball security from game to game, and they got to deal with a lot of pressure, because NC State likes to turn defense into offense and get out, and they like to play in the open floor as much as Creighton does. That's the one thing that both these teams like to do.
Matt, I talk about this a lot. So this may sound familiar to you leading up to the question, but I think it's very hard when you finish the previous season and you get to a destination. And I think there's something about the regiment and rigor you have to go through the following season to be disciplined enough to not fast forward to the end, right? Like you still, hey, we made this stop last year. We got a better team this year. You kind of sleepwalk up until. In your opinion, because I think a little bit of that happened to Creighton, right? A lot of good players, a lot of preseason love. They made a nice run a year ago. They probably wanted to fast forward to the end without enjoying the process as much as they should. Is this team, in your opinion, capable of hitting the light switch?
It's a really good question, man. We were just talking about that on the pod with Jahens and Skur. It's the one thing that gives you pause about their ceiling, because you want to see less of a gap between the floor and the ceiling, and you also want to see that narrowed as the year goes on. You don't want to, like, the way they played against Xavier almost rings off some alarm bells, because you're like, why is that still in the reality, in this timeline? You should be those performances should be in the past now. So yeah, we tried to figure out how we feel about this group and their potential to go make a deep run because of that. And it does give you pause. The one thing that just you keep coming back to when you try to figure out who's capable of doing what in March, is like there's just so much. It's just about who you are on that day. Because, I mean, North Carolina was like left for dead last year, and they should have won the Natty. Like they had Kansas dead. You know what I mean? So it's like, sorry, DB, didn't mean to bring up Hart. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like if you get it going from here on out, like there is not much that can stop you if you're talented. So we know the talent is there. We know they've put the performances together at certain stances of the season. So it's there. Can they tap into it? That's the $1 million question. I can't answer that, because some days it's been and some days it hasn't been. But I mean, if you look at everything you try to analyze, like since Kalkbrenner got back in the lineup, because Bart Torvik is like basically Ken Pom with sortable stats, right? You can move around the timelines, if you will. Like they're a top 10 team since he got back in the lineup, and there's only 6 teams that have a top 25 defense and a top 25 offense in that period: Alabama, A&M, Houston, Texas, Purdue, and Creighton. So I know all the other 5 teams. I know everybody kind of banks on to do some good stuff. The worst seed in that grouping is A&M. They're a 7, but they're a 7 seed because of what happened prior to that run. I mean, they've been aces since then. So yeah, I don't know. The numbers, the data, the performances, it gives you reason to believe that they can flip the switch, but there's also reasons to believe that thing's going to stay off. So we'll see. See tomorrow.
Well, Matt, national attention gives Creighton a lot of love, right? Like, I mean, we're seeing like everybody thinking, oh, Creighton could go to the Elite 8 with their
we've had the injury talk.
We've had injury talk, which we kind of got into that a little bit on Tuesday, like what injuries. But then, people that are close to the program or even fans of the program are more on the fence about this team. Like, they're hit. No, now they're missed. No, now they're hit. Now they're missed. So when you're filling out your bracket, you're like, I'll give NC State an upset. Like I took Creighton. I know a lot of people though that took NC State because of that reason. Like, how do you kind of find the balance there? Do you lean national attention, or do you lean toward the fan base and maybe groups of people that have watched this program play basketball every single week and weekend?
Shoot, Matty, you probably know too.
Is it bad if I roll my eyes at both? Like I don't
do it. Yeah, roll them at both.
That would be very Matt DeMarinis-esque if you did.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think the truth is like on a in balance on either side, because I feel like the national people, the ones who are like really high on Creighton right now are probably looking at the analytics only, because they haven't. I guarantee you they haven't seen Creighton since Maui. Like so. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like I just don't buy that, They're the reason that Creighton was a top 10 team out of the jump, and I thought that was overhyped when I was talking about it on podcasts and the preseason and everything. I said they're probably not top 10 now. They probably can be top 10 at this point right now as we talk today. So that got the fans kind of raising the bar to a level that they don't want to lower it to now. So I don't know. I don't know. I think NC State can beat them, but I also think I also wouldn't be surprised if they beat NC State by 20 because, NC State is so undisciplined. There's so much variance in terms of how they can perform on the high end. I've seen them get waxed by teams that don't even belong in this tournament. And then I've seen them beat the crap out of teams that probably have a chance to win the Natty. Like, so how well does NC State play kind of might determine that. But if I'm betting on the variables I trust, I think they're more on Creighton's side of things. And I would be surprised if Creighton doesn't get through this first round matchup.
So I don't even know if this makes any sense, but I'm going to ask it because of the consistency.
Just go ahead. We'll figure it out along the way.
Could the guy that was considered the best pro prospect when the season started be considered an X factor tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, because
feel free to explain the curious case of Arthur Kaluma.
For sure. And here's the thing about Arthur too, and I still do believe this, and I think this is why a lot of his early criticism was a little bit unfair, because I think, you have a lot of draft guys who try to analyze prospects, and they have a certain opinion of you going into the year, and then you have to immediately jump off that trampoline, otherwise they're going to drop you off and all the doubt's going to come in. He did miss the whole summer pretty much with that knee injury, and he didn't even get to start working out off on his own, doing individual skill workouts outside of practice until right around maybe second week of December. I want to say that hinders you, that hinders your progression, your skill development. So I think a lot of that was a little bit unfair to him because they didn't factor that enough into the equation. Now he has been up and down at times in the second half of the year, but you've also seen kind of where his role has enhanced to the point where he kind of knows what he needs to do out there better than he did in November or December. So he's I don't know if he's an X factor tomorrow, but when I look at the potential that a Jack Clark has, like I talked about earlier, for NC State to change the game and potentially be a guy that could flip it in NC State's direction, Arthur Kaluma is that guy for Creighton, because they're really the only two players who do what they do on those teams. You know what I mean? It looks a certain way when those guys are doing what they do. And so I feel like whoever gets the upper hand in that matchup, it might show itself on the scoreboard as well, because that's a variable that neither team can fill without those two playing at a high level.
And it's interesting too, because I think Kaluma's the better player.
Yeah, I do too. But Clark is good. He's had some really good games, some ones where you're oh wow, okay, so it's in there for him.
Oh, pogo stick.
Hey, yeah. Matt, since you're so stat driven, and I like to really analyze and break down Kalkbrenner's play. As you know, we kind of talked our last conversation.
Hey, he hit us with the DM when he went over his left shoulder.
And feel free.
You had me thinking. It was in my head for weeks.
Feel free to keep giving me those subtle jabs or pokes with the broomstick. Hey, do you see that? And
I wasn't trying to jab. I was just saying I think he's really good on the left side of the floor.
For sure. And maybe I was just overly critical in the moment because of this. Maybe this is where my mind was going, because he doesn't get all of the field goal attempts that I'd like him to get. When he gets double-digit attempts, more times than not, Creighton wins. And when he doesn't, it seems like, man, why didn't we? That's the thing. Why didn't we give Kalkbrenner more production? Because if we would have, then Creighton would have won this basketball game. Whether that's true or not, it gets me thinking about this then. Is it because 5 guys on the floor that can all score at any moment in time? Kalkbrenner's numbers are down in games. He goes 7 for 7, and that's the number we see. That's the number we base it off of. 7 of 12, 10 of 12, whatever it is. Are his numbers so low and so good because they get him the ball in the right moments instead of trying to overdo it and force it into him? Do you kind of look at it from that perspective more than, hey, if you do give him the ball more, that stat line wouldn't actually read correctly like it is reading now, because if you give him more attempts, he may end up missing more, and then you may be thinking, oh, why did we give him the ball 18 times?
I haven't thought about it like as a fear thing that they're worried he'll miss more.
Right, like are they just giving him the right looks, and that's why his production is so good?
Look, I think they do miss him at times that they have, like there's easy 2 right there if you can just find a way to put it in his hands. I do believe that happens at times, but I also think when you look at how he's used within the offense, he has to work really hard to get positioning to score. I mean, he sets a lot of ball screens. So when he's diving to the rim, they really out of the pick and roll, the really only option to get him the ball in that situation is the flip up. You know what I mean? So it has to be there right away, and teams try to take that away. They don't like getting dunked on, so they tag him a lot, and it makes Creighton have to, swing it across the court and reverse it and attack seams that way. So when that happens, he usually ends up being more of a screener to create driving lanes for guys to score off of him. Now, the other part of it is too, sometimes when he's getting position, he's not winning that battle as much as he needs to in order to catch and score. That's kind of where his game is. Like, he's not a catch and back. I don't know if his percentages are necessarily as high off of catch, back down, make a move, as opposed to catch, make a move right out as soon as the ball hits his hands, So it's all about where he is in accordance with the rim and his man when the ball hits his hands. That being said, he's still leading the team in scoring on a team that's got 5 guys in double figures. Like, that's impressive, because if they have 3 guys in double figures, I bet you he's a 20-point a game scorer.
And that's what makes me think he needs the ball more.
Yeah, it's his efficiency, but would you be risking his efficiency with more ops?
Right.
Let me ask you this, Matty, because a lot of people love UConn's metrics, but they play in the West. Xavier may not guard enough if they run into a team like Texas, who is ultra good defensively. Marquette, I kind of like their path to at least be Elite 8-ish, especially with their metrics. If you're looking at all the Big East teams, maybe not who makes the deepest run, but whose path do you like, considering how they play?
I love Marquette's path. I mean, I said it when it came on the board. They're walking to the Final Four. Like, they're strutting. I mean, Purdue's in their region, and that was a 5-point game at Mackey back when Marquette wasn't really Marquette yet.
Iguodaro would ruin Edie.
That would be interesting, right? Because Edie's not great. Edie's not good defensively.
Listen.
Like, that's the one.
The floaters, the runners, he finishes with one either hand. Like, Iguodaro, he's legit.
For sure. That's a scary group. I like their matchup there. I've seen Duke a handful of times. I know they're really talented. I know they're playing really well right now, but
their shooting can come and go.
I think Marquette's the favorite in that region, in my opinion. I know that's crazy to say because they're the 2 seed. Yeah, it's very chalky, but I think their path is the easiest of any of the Big East teams, in my opinion. The way I look at it, like, Creighton's got to deal with Bama, Arizona. Like, UConn's got St. Mary's in the next round if they get past Iona. They've got, that region is just scary good.
St. Mary's is so slow with their possessions and deliberate. I don't like St. Mary's path at all. VCU wouldn't surprise me at all if they won. You've watched St. Mary's play, like, they're like passing up good shots for premium shots, and it takes forever for them to play.
That beats you, though. You know what I mean? That's what Nova does. That's what Nova does. That's how Nova won Natty
against Gonzaga, and I'm like, they're just not going to score enough because they're not going to get the ball on the rim enough.
Right.
Yeah. If you can get off to a good start against St. Mary's, you got them in trouble because then you make them uncomfortable because they have to play outside their style. But when they're operating, like, when the game's in their control and they can just, bleed everything down and make plays, like, that's a scary group to beat. So.
Biggest
kind of
snub.
all over the place right now, but
That's all right. We got to
to
take advantage. Hey, that's why you're here, though. We
Yeah,
know you love
exactly.
hoops. You're lucky we don't have time to get into the NBA. Kansas, the biggest snub going to that region, or overplayed, or you like somebody else's? Man, they should be pretty pissed.
Trying to think who I thought got disrespected a little bit. I don't know.
Colgate. Would you
Colgate.
stop?
Colgate got disrespected?
Listen, if Colgate beats Texas, just be prepared. We'll never hear the end of it.
I don't know. I'm surprised Kentucky's a 6th seed a little bit. I thought that was so. That's not really a snub, though.
So if Providence beats them, you're okay with that?
Well, Providence isn't beating them. That's not. I don't. Providence has some massive issues. I don't know if they're a tourney team right now the way they're playing. So
I'll take a plate of bacon and sausage when they name Patino the head coach at St. John's and Cooley at Georgetown.
Okay,
well, your boy's been on that train for a month.
Well, who's your like your conspiracy theory pick to coach Providence then? Who you got?
Well, I don't know.
I've heard like weird things like St. John's goes a different route and screws up the Patino thing, and Patino ends up Providence. I mean, I've heard that, and it's like, what? That is so wild. But yeah, it's gonna be the coaching thing is gonna be crazy to me.
Big East is legit. You better know what you're doing with a chalkboard.
Hey, DB, let me ask you a question. Let me flip this on you guys because we were talking about this on the pod. Okay. So Providence's media has been like cutthroat with Cooley about trying to get like him to narrow down like, are you considering Georgetown,
right,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Like,
so I'm of the opinion, and I understand like that reporters have to ask these questions. I get it. Like I've done this for 10 years. I know what the deal is. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you that to me is a question that doesn't lose its time
relevance.
Frame.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Like you can ask that question after they get ousted.
Yep.
Why do you have to ask it now and then ask if this is a distraction when you're asking about it?
Exactly. Do you know what distraction? Do you know what it is?
Am I out of bounds there? Like, you feel me on this?
Yes,
I'm with you.
It's lack of situational awareness. But
Yeah.
you're not helping anybody out because everybody's thinking the same thing you are. You don't have to tell us what you're thinking. We know
it comes down to ego and being selfish and wanting to be the first person to so-called ask the question, even though it's been talked about.
Because what I saw the other day was I saw someone ask about it, and then I saw on Twitter their story was I asked blah 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 this, and it's like, see, you just wanted the I'm the guy that asked the question.
Recognition.
I'm telling you, Patino to St. John's, Cooley to Georgetown. That conference will be a monster with coaches.
Where's our guy at Penn State going?
The Big East is going to start to hate each other then because all that kumbaya stuff with Jay Wright's going to go by the wayside. If they start poaching coaches from each other, they're going to start hating each other.
Somebody wait till you see somebody pull him out of retirement, then all heck will break loose.
Hey, he said he was interested in the Georgetown job if it was offered.
Oh my goodness.
Here we go. Thanks, Maddie.
Thanks, Matt. See you later.
All right, guys. Take care.
Hey, coming up next, just more CNC.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Man, I've got to tell you all out there, these hard breaks really get DB and I in trouble because you probably
we weren't planning on Maddie asking us the question.
No,
though.
but still, even talking to Matt, our time just runs over because that's what we do. I feel like, if you are going to run anything over, it should be,
my conscience, my ego,
yeah,
my feelings.
Yeah, exactly.
Gets ran over all the time.
Or if you're out on the road, maybe you hit something that you didn't want to hit and you need to go to Dingman's because Dingman's Collision Center is the only place to take your car for those issues. You took the car in yesterday.
I did. And so, the cool thing about them, and listen, and who knows, it's like Darcy and the crew at Dingman's. They're like, hey, you know what? We really like what you guys are doing. We want to be on board. You know what they were really thinking? We're going to make our money back because
these nut jobs.
We've got DB and Andrew, and something will always happen.
Andrew hits deer, and DB has a bunch of kids.
It's going to be a wash, right? But no, Seth, those guys that gave the estimate yesterday, they super fantastic. And got in, got out. It was probably only there 15 minutes maybe. Scheduled to get it fixed on the 27th. So yeah, the family that we're working with, been amazing. Called them yesterday, emailed them the estimate, and
see, that's nice. It's rare to have somebody on the receiving end of those calls that are so easy to work with. I remember when, and this is a different story. I didn't know the people, but I was at a dog park, okay? And it was a local apartment dog park. And neighbors of my former living situation were in the dog park. It was their dog and my dog. And my dog Molly loves to play, and they had like a big it was a beautiful silver dog. Short hair, can't remember what those dogs are called. Somebody out there in the comments can help me out. But
Weimaraner?
Maybe. I'd have to look at it. I'd have to see a photo. But
sounds like a Weimaraner.
They're playing. Dog slices Molly's ear with its claw. Mm-hmm. Accidental, right? But when you slice a dog's ear, it doesn't stop bleeding. You have to go get that stitched up right away. So I'm rushing her to the dog hospital. I'm holding a towel against her ear. I'm freaking out. I'm trying to just get it to stop.
Miss Molly.
Right. I didn't say that. That would have been the nice way of me saying whatever happened. But after it happened, you get the bill back, and I think it was like $300-400.
That's it. Yeah, they're expensive.
And so I reached out to the people that were a part of this incident, and was like, hey, I know it was an accident. Do you mind splitting the bill with me? Mm-hmm. Because I didn't say hey, your dog caused this, even though the dog did, but they were playing together. So it's an accident. But I didn't think that I should have to carry that whole bill. Now, maybe somebody else out there does. I'm saying you're wrong. Because I thought this lady
just can't help yourself, can you?
No, I could.
I'm saying you're wrong.
And they chose not to. So I called the woman, and she basically made it sound, she put blame on another little chihuahua that was outside of the fence barking at the two dogs playing.
Got him fired up, huh?
And got him fired up.
It's always the chihuahua's fault.
It's always the chihuahua's fault, right? And I said, well, I was talking with the doctors, the vets, and they said, no, this was caused by a big dog, not a small dog. She had the audacity to then say, no, I saw the chihuahua reach its claw through the fence and slice your dog's ear. I'm like, well, now we are getting just outrageous territory.
Shane, put that on your bingo card. My man dropped audacity.
And so she just ended up blocking my call. So every time, leave it to me to be,
you
over the top. So every time I saw her walking the dog out there.
Did you fake bark?
No,
That's so petty.
I said, everybody run! Everybody, dangerous dog!
Danger! Yes, Chuck.
Dog on the loose!
What I could see it. No, it's the father. Just again, first, and I said this on Monday or whatever day that was. Like, good on the parents for parenting someone in such a way where they leave a note, right? In pencil and all, probably number 2, so you could criticize him. And I told you he hoops, right? So
you did say that.
He must have known whose car it was, and so I got the backstory yesterday from the dad, and he says, when it happened, he called us. He was already in the process of writing the note.
Good on him,
right? Like who's raised like that? No, that's good. Who's raised like that? And so I said, hey,
very rare.
And he's like, I appreciate you being cool about this. And I said,
I appreciate you being cool about this.
That's what I said. I said, 80% of this is because he's getting the energy he's giving. And he put out a positive vibe, man. So good on the fam. We're all good. It's scheduled for the 27th, which is relatively quick turnaround.
Good turnaround.
Yeah.
Really good turnaround time.
Dude, so I didn't realize that Seth, one of the guys that did the estimate, his dad was coaching a team that wore my team out when I was a kid. I remember like it was yesterday. They put it on us. We're not going to let me get the ball. So they, in essence, were harassing the center, put a nose over the center, who, by the way, do you know who my center was on that football team? Mike Huffman, the head coach from Bellevue West.
Okay.
I remember my dad was coaching. My mom was so mad at how they were treating me. But yeah, apparently he had done his homework and we're not going to let me be a factor. So Seth wanted to remind me. Super nice guy, though. I met basically.
Seth seems like my type of guy, wanting to remind you of stuff like that.
So it was funny. Like, I didn't realize a lot of people maybe they were working, but there were a lot of kids bringing in vehicles for their parents. I heard a lot of, my mom called. She had and maybe it was because it was spring break.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. But I remember for oil changes.
I saw, and I don't want to guess her age because a lot of times young ladies look younger, but she wasn't in her 20s. She pulls up in an all black Chrysler 300 and she gets out with her little sister. She's like, yeah, my mom wanted me to bring her car in. And I was like, oh, look at you behind the 300.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big body car.
I feel like that's the luxury you have, though, as a parent. You can just say, hey, because Caleb's now at the age to where he can do that for your car. So like if you need an oil change and you're like, man, I don't really want to get off the couch.
You know what's weird?
Caleb, your job today is go to.
He doesn't mind hopping in my, I always say truck. It's not. Don't chastise me. My SUV.
Yeah, SUV.
Maya won't go near it. Yeah, she's just not comfortable driving. And she's been driving longer. She'll hop on the interstate. She met me in Lincoln. So she's obviously not afraid.
Not scared of the road.
Yeah, not afraid.
She's scared of the size of the car.
And she's like, or maybe I make her nervous because she doesn't want to do anything to it. But I'm like, be fine. We're going to be all right.
Yeah, we're going to be all right.
I got a funny thing about, you laughed at me when I said, because we maybe got cut off with Matty DeMarinis when I said Iguodaro.
We didn't maybe. We did.
Would wear out. That's why I always recommend YouTube if you can. Sasha, and that Genius Brain Trust, she'll have an app for us here coming up where you can just listen to the Coffee and Cream app on ESPN 590, which you can take us with you all the time. We know that's coming, hopefully. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But
say it while she's in the room.
And I just joking. I just right off the top of my head, I was like, man, Iguodala would wear out Zach Edey. And you like laughed at me. And I was like, oh, shoot, man. He may be mad because I know that's his guy, right? Like, I don't want to get into
Edey?
another knockdown drag out of Trace Jackson Davis versus Reeves. But at the very end of that, I am calling my shot. Rick Pitino to St. John's and Ed Cooley to Georgetown, which I'm that's my story and I'm sticking to it. You can thank me later. Hopefully you can get some odds in Vegas.
Can you bet on coaching changes like that?
I don't know.
I don't think you can on mobile, but you probably could find somebody that takes that.
If you bet a substantial amount, I'll just take first month's rent and deposit for a couple players that may need a place to stay. You guys can just drop that off. Maybe a couple of grocery. Well, that would be if it was for me personally. I would definitely take the bacon. I can't wait to eat the corned beef tomorrow, though.
Like I said, I can't have it. I'm a little saddened.
But there will be a Lenten special for you.
There will be a Lenten special for me.
I don't know. There could be.
I don't know at breakfast if there will be or not.
You could eat bagels and lox?
I could.
Salmon is off the chain. Like, you can't go wrong with salmon. Are you a smoked salmon guy?
Oh,
you can miss me with the capers and red onions, but I'll eat the rest.
I'll tell you what.
It's a nice slice of sharp cheddar.
You put a piece of salmon in the smoker for the allotted time. You pull that bad boy out.
I got you.
Pair it up.
I got you.
You know what else is tasty? A little sports 6-pack beer from Zipline Brewing. We'll do that next. It's March Madness edition on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Time now for the Sports Six-Pack on Coffee and Cream with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning. Presented by Zipline Brewing Company, makers of Dear Old Nebraska Brew, the official beer of Nebraska alumni.
It is the official beer. And I tell you what, not a made-up story. It just happened to us Friday night. I don't even know if I should say his name, but I was with a gentleman whose son will be participating in state wrestling coming up. So go Team Tomasics.
There he is.
Great kid. I told you he's the kiddo that's wrestling at 50
Yep.
and not 52, so he can. But anyway, so his dad, we were walking back to the car and we stopped at the Hopcat. Right, he wanted a beer. They'd already eaten, and was looking for a Bud Light comp. Didn't carry Bud Light because, of course, at Hopcat there's Zipline folks. And what did he have? He had a Dear Old Nebraska U. And he didn't just have one, he had two. So
that's my type of guy.
So how about that? Just on a humbug.
I feel like I'm going to have some Zipline beers while we are watching the games today.
Are you?
Maybe.
Well, you got options. And you know the other one I told you, Oklahoma Tyler? You know his favorite beer, right?
Wait. Hey, Shane, what is Oklahoma Tyler's favorite beer?
Dang.
You know he can't read. What'd you call it?
Is it dang?
No.
You said
it starts with a K.
The copper?
No, that's C.
This dude.
Starts with a K and ends in Olsh.
You called it a kolache.
Yeah, the kolache.
You said, was it a kolache? And I go,
well,
like the pictures you put together, or
no, those
the
are collages.
Well, that's German, isn't it? Kolache?
Kolache?
I think it's Czech, but I would have to ask somebody that doesn't look like me for verification. But yeah, Timo's, he's a huge Kolsch guy.
Wow,
What?
Nice work.
Is it Czech?
It is Czech.
Yeah. No, thank you. I'm good for Jeopardy. I'm just not good for fixing anything
or knowing what side of the gas pump to pull up to. That's me.
Well, I can ask questions.
And so can Shane. Shane, kick us off, March Madness edition.
All right, question number one is Creighton's men's basketball has been motivated and an inspiration for Molly Hughes. Even though members on the team would argue it's the other way around, has there ever been a time where somebody's greater battle became motivation or inspiration for you in sports?
Ooh, good question.
Yes.
That's a good question.
Yes, because I happened to be on the call during the spring game for one during Team Jack. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Had no idea.
That's so cool.
We were doing the broadcast, and at the very end, after Jack housed one for the Huskers, I was like, man, there truly is no place like Nebraska.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. I had no idea.
For me, in high school, my second cousin was diagnosed with brain cancer. And she was diagnosed at like the age of 8 or 9. Went through God knows how many rounds of chemo, 8 or 9 rounds of chemo, made it to 19, but passed away. Such a horrific, and we talk about Team Jack, such a traumatic event, just horrific tragedy. And as a soccer team, it was during my junior year back in St. Louis. As a team, I had us dedicate the season to her. And we had like warm-ups. We did like a balloon release day for her. And she became kind of not only just the inspiration for me that season, but the inspiration for the team. And they didn't even know her. So that was really cool for me.
Yeah. Goodness.
Didn't a lot of those things start happening after that? Like Team Jack was the first thing.
We saw a ton.
We saw a ton. Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, that was awesome that you were on the broadcast. Would you rather play in the NCAA tournament but lose in the first round or win the NIT?
I'm always going to pick winning. I'll take the winning the NIT.
I'll take the NCAA tournament appearance. And here's the reason. And I'm not trying to like, this is going to sound like I'm downgrading it. Yeah. But like, do I want to be on varsity or do I want to be on JV?
Wow.
And like, I want to get to like the big one, right? I want to at least play for something big. I get the NIT like victory and I'm all for it. I will celebrate it. I think it's cool. But if I'm playing and I get to choose, I want to be playing for the big one.
It's not like I'm going between the difference between 8th grade and varsity. I'm not dominating little kids out there at the NIT. I'll take the.
So you want to be playing on either Thursday or Friday, not like in the first four.
Yeah, whatever. Give me the dubs.
If I got to play in the round of 64 and I ended up losing, the team ended up losing, I would be more infatuated by the fact that like the build up to that moment that we got there versus the NIT. I don't know if the NIT is as heavily watched as the latter. So I like the publicity behind it. Plus I like playing for the big thing, even if it ends up in a loss.
Give me the dubs.
Question number 3.
Who will be the first team to burst the majority of brackets day one?
Bust?
Bust, yeah. Sorry, there's a little light shining on it.
Who will be the first team to bust? Last year, it was Richmond over Iowa for my bracket because I had Iowa going to the finals, if you can
Who's
believe
the
that.
first bracket buster?
So we have West Virginia, Maryland.
I would say VCU, but a lot of people have them.
A lot of people have Utah State.
So it probably has to be somebody today, right?
What do you think? Like Charleston over San Diego State?
Is it safe to pick games that are being played today?
Yeah, no, well, that's what I'm going to go with.
Because they have the first crack at it?
Yeah. Like, who will be the first team to bust the bracket? I mean, obviously, it's going to be one of your, like, the West Virginia, Maryland game is
Charleston's not beating San Diego State.
Well, and I was just tossing out a 5-12.
No, I'm working through it in my head.
8-9 in Maryland, West Virginia, that, like, is going to bust half of the brackets. Because those are the toss-up games, right?
Well, according to you, it's Colgate.
Oh, that's going to be mine for sure.
And even though I have them in the final, I'm not going to tell you, making a run, the best crack at it will be Oral Roberts.
And that's another one. And because that comes before Colgate, that game will end prior to Colgate. Yeah. So it could be Oral Roberts. I'll say Colgate just because that's my team, but Oral Roberts would be
for the record. If Colgate wins, you'll be doing the show by yourself.
If Colgate wins, I'm taking tomorrow off, Sasha. You heard it. And I'm calling into the show.
She ain't paying attention.
Did you hear me?
She's busy.
I'm calling in and telling you.
She's busy developing our app.
If you could attend a 2023 March Madness game in one of the current cities, which city are you choosing? Side note, this isn't a, hey, I want you to watch Final Four, so Houston question. I want to know what the city you'd choose because of the desire to travel there.
Wow, one more question. There's a lot in there.
There was a lot in there. Should I go slower?
If you could attend a 2023 March Madness game in one of the current cities, what city are you choosing? But you can't just choose Houston, so you get to watch the Final Four. Where do you want to go? Like, do you want to go to Houston? Vegas is a great one.
Yeah, that's where my guy's going.
I'd probably say Orlando.
Where do you want to go to Kissimmee?
I want to go to Disney World.
Yeah, that's where you'd be. I'd go to Vegas.
Vegas is close second. to that.
Yeah.
But Orlando, warmer climate. Las Vegas is warm-ish.
Since our clocks are always rushing us in Vegas, they don't have clocks. Give me Vegas.
Yeah. Well, you'll be up in the early morning betting on tennis.
I'll just be hanging out. I didn't spend any time in the sports books.
Really?
Nope.
Would you stay on the strip or off?
Off.
I've never been anywhere off the strip.
And I certainly wouldn't hang out at the sports books. It's crowded. Too many people.
Well, especially during March Madness.
Yeah, not
no,
doing it.
thank you.
Shano?
Which first-round bets do you like the best?
Well, we heard from Brian Edwards. If you missed any of those first-round bets, have you been looking at our favorite website? I'm going to say I'm going to be pulled into Damon's family tree of this website.
Tree.
He showed me this website called Scores and Odds, and man, I'm telling you.
Like a kid in a candy store. A lot of stats.
Although that Nevada game last night was, what happened? What happened to them?
Can't factor in emotion.
No. That is the one miss from the website. It does not scale emotion. My favorite bet.
Toughie.
Because I like a lot of upsets.
Leia?
Yeah, I like Penn State over A&M, but I also think A&M, if my bracket goes according, so say Colgate somehow pulls off the magic, if A&M wins, I could see A&M facing Houston in the Elite Eight, and then having one Texas team in Houston.
Kyle, you're so boomer bust with Texas. You realize they could be playing for a championship.
They're a winner in like 4 of my brackets. I made
4?
I made 15 brackets.
Who does that?
Me and a lot of other people out there.
What won the poll? Dude, one of your questions was 15 to 20. Who's doing 15 to 20 brackets?
Me. There's a ton of people.
I don't even know how you keep up.
A ton of people.
I'll take a short fave today. Utah State.
Okay, I like that pick a lot. I'll go Penn State. Shane, is there one more or no?
Yeah, question 6. Which long shot could make the Final Four?
Long shot?
Kent State.
I just said I bet Penn State, and I'd say Texas A&M at 7.
You're bosom buddies with Colgate. Go brush your teeth.
Are they going there?
Yeah.
I'll brush up because I'm brushing up for March Madness today. It all starts at 11. Come join us at Hail Varsity Club. See you tomorrow.
Clear.